OTB's The Hurling Pod.
With Board Gosh Energy.
Hurling. It's anyone's game.
Welcome along to the latest live edition of the Hurling Pod. As Owen Cody said on the steps of the Hogan stand this evening, there's still plenty of hurling left in Leinster. You need to get the Mikey Butler counter on the ready after his goal today, and a last-gasp goal from Cillian Buckley, helping Kilkenny to break Galway's hearts in what was an absorbing Leinster decider at Croke Park. John Kiely has now managed Limerick in 12 provincial and national finals in his tenure to date. They've won all 12. Aaron Gillane running riot as the treaty completed 5 in a row in the Munster Hurling Championship. But the big talking point after the Munster final, should Clare have had a free to send that game to extra time for the second year in a row? Two guys who have rushed home from Croke Park, and I'm incredibly impressed they're on the stream. Wasn't sure if this was actually going to happen about an hour ago. Paul Murphy, James Skehill. I'm sure there are contrasting emotions, but you're both very welcome along tonight, lads.
How's it going, lads?
Great to be here.
You were in great form in the Croke Park Hotel before now, Skehill. Let's not forget it.
I was enjoying the company. This was a great day, and I was very happy with the way things were going. You know, delighted with the way things were going.
Good atmosphere.
And now I feel like, did you ever see a dog kind of at least on the lawn, then they get sick on the lawn? You're like, what in the name? That's how I feel right now. I feel as sick as a parrot or a dog. I don't know. Jeez.
Do you know what? I know the feeling. I know before we get into it, I remember being at Kilkenny and Wexford in 2004, I think it was, and the block and the goal in and the final whistle. And it's like, you don't even have enough time to digest it. Or, like, to be honest, at the end of the Kilkenny game, I was kind of going, look, Galway kicking on by 2 points. Momentum completely with Galway. And you felt that, right, it's just about slipping here. So, like, I've been at the other side of it where you're jaded afterwards going, how did that just happen? You know, so it's...
But isn't it unreal the way sport goes? Like, I went from literally double fist pumping, right, to hands in the head.
It's amazing. And those points were going over, and like I was in the Hogan stand, and they were going over in the Cusick, and you're waiting. You hear the Galway roar on the far side for, let's say, Concannon's point or whatever, and you're going,
Murph's been robbed by the Wi-Fi.
Jesus, is it gone?
No, he's back. Here you go. Go on. Sorry, not go again there.
No, I was just saying, like, the points were going over there, and like they're going over on the Cusick stand side, and like the Galway crowd are cheering, and you're going, oh Jesus, this is slipping away from us. And the Galway roar was happening at that stage, and sure, like, all you could hear was the Kilkenny crowd shouting for a goal, go for goal. But how that was going to happen during it, you know, because you knew Galway were going to sit back, so it nearly needed it to go to the corner. All the defenders get sucked over there, and a freak, I suppose, clearance comes out. Then it's not your normal incident, you know. So it's mayhem, a lot to unravel.
It's Roy the Rover stuff if your team win. It's the ultimate sickener if your team lose. It's the contrasting emotions. And like, before we get into it, Skehill, and break it down in detail and look at the other game, like 2 unbelievable finals that we had this afternoon. Like, you must have been thinking when Galway got through that spell, I think it was 111 to 4 points between minute 49 and effectively minute 75 with the way it went into injury time. You're thinking Galway have done enough at that point. There's no way you can think that Kilkenny are going to conspire a score from there. Like, even when it looked like TJ was about to carry the ball over the sideline, and then it looked like he was going over the end line, he looked out in his feet. Somehow it gets recycled back. And like, Pádraig Mannion will probably think, why did I stick a boot on it not to allow someone else maybe to come in and clear the ball? You're still thinking Cillian Buckley's not going to put it in the net from there with literally one puck of the ball left.
Yeah, and I can see it's very easy. Where I was now in the Hogan stand, I was right in front of that corner where the bit of the schmozzle, if you want to call it, happened, and there was 7 or 8 things you can pick out in that series or that passage of play over 40 seconds, and it's easy for me to comment to say, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? You know, but like, it's just Gareth Mack goes for a swing, miss hits it, drops down, then we drop a hurl, it's picked up, bats it over his head, you know what I mean? Then it falls, Pádraig loses the hurl, he kicks it, Cillian Buckley gets it, somebody foul him, and it seems like the ball just rolls into the net, and it's just, it's sickening. In that instance, you're hoping just put the ball over the sideline, just kick it out, try get a dead phase in play, and then you can set yourself up, secure it. And I remember last year I was in the same position, and Kyle Hayes came back in the semi-final versus Galway, and he came back right on the edge of the square after playing centre forward, full forward of the day, and he caught the last 65 or free coming in, and I was just saying, pull back Joseph Cooney, pull back everybody for that last passage, and it didn't happen. And geez, I wouldn't even say we learned a lesson. We didn't. It was just the cruelty of sport, you know, and it's a sickening one, right? We have to just swallow it, move on, and get ready for the next one.
I want to go back to a nice moment before the game in a second, before we start bringing in the listener questions, which are flying in on both Facebook and YouTube to the side of us at the moment. But Tommy Walsh was saying after the game, Paul, that he was delighted that it was Cillian Buckley. He said one of the most professional players that have been on the Kilkenny panel in recent years, maybe a bit of an unsung hero, not a guy who's obviously associated with scoring goals, but there he was to be the hero today.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it was actually, I suppose, when you've soldiered with these lads for so many years, you're very close to I suppose, the coalface of seeing what that player has gone through over the years. And like Cillian, even from a young age, he had hip injuries and different things. Not to go back too far, Anthony, but throughout his career, he's been so consistent for Kilkenny. He's played such a consistent role in and around between starting off in kind of half forward line, going to midfield, half back. And, he's just not a player who puts his name out there, Anthony. He just goes about his business really, diligently. And there's just a great likeness about Cillian Buckley, just our likability about him. Like, he was captain of Kilkenny there one of the years, and you couldn't pick a better fella, really, because he comes into training so early. Everything he does off the pitch is dedicated for, getting him in the best shape to be on the field. His hurling, his diet, his training, everything he does, it's to try and get on the pitch. And like, you see there, he starts on the bench today, comes in and has a huge impact. He fielded a few really high ball or great catches, drove the momentum, kind of drove the team forward from the half back line. And, it didn't come in kind of as an experienced player and just kind of mope around or anything like that. He got to work straight away. And for so many days there, Cillian's had tough days to get in there and, to score that winning goal. He deserves it so much just for all his work over the years. And like Tommy was saying, like, it just couldn't happen to a nicer fella. So, look, for his moment there now to score the winning goal, I mean, great. I'm sure Owen Cody and TJ, or let's say down the other end, Conor Whelan, these lads will have their days in future. But for to land Cillian Buckley for a day like today, like, it's a great little snapshot in time for him to look back on for the rest of his days. It's just a great moment for him.
Yeah, really special moment for the two lads in the Croke Park Hotel before they even got to go to the game. Before they even got to go in and watch the Limerick and Clare game, they bumped into a man of folklore on this hurling pod. Johnny Glynn, back to play for New York for the week. And look who the boys bump into. There he is, Johnny Glynn, with the lads before the game, Skell. You weren't able to tempt him to go back and play with Galway again, no?
Well, I asked him, right, yeah. I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he said he's going to transfer him back to Ardrahan.
Really?
So that's a huge plus for Ardrahan, to have someone like him to come back and play in their club championship. So baby steps, Will. Baby steps. If we get him back to Ardrahan, we get him in the county at least, or the country. We'll work from there.
That's interesting.
He looks in fair shape too, though. He looks in fair shape.
Big
man.
man.
Absolutely, yeah. So is he thinking of moving back to Ireland for a while, so?
I won't go that far now. I think there was a year, I'm not sure what it was. It could be the year before last, whereby he actually commuted, would you believe, from New York back to play in the club championship. So you can imagine how difficult that was on the body and the mind. So I don't know, is he going to repeating that, or is he going to contemplate moving back full time? But it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility for him to commute again.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see if the commute maybe becomes a stay, and then we could potentially talk about him playing for Galway again. So we might start off, lads, with the first game of the day. You guys were watching this before you went in to watch the Leinster final itself, and it's Limerick again becoming Munster champions. They've emulated the Cork team of the 80s by winning 5 in a row. Came out in the end by 1 point, 123 to 122. We'll get the reaction of both managers in a moment to the free that wasn't given at the end. But that's now 24 Munster titles picked up by Limerick, 5 in as many seasons with that 1 point win. I mentioned at the outset this remarkable record they have under John Kiley when they get to finals. And that's 3 league finals, the 4 All-Irelands and the 5 Munsters since 2017. 12 finals, they've won all of them. There's something about a team, Murph, if they can do that. And everyone's been making a lot of the very tight games that Limerick have won in the last 2 seasons particularly. And if they keep on coming out on the right side of a result when a game is tight like that, that probably tells you a lot about the character of a team. Well,
that's it. Character is exactly the word. At important times of the game, Limerick asserted their dominance on the game. I'm thinking of big scores from like Cathal O'Neill and that. And like, when me and Skehill were watching it there, we were just looking, going, just when you feel the momentum might go with Clare at the important stages of the game, because Clare did have their purple patches, but at the important stages, Limerick always just went up the other end, and it was big players stepping up, getting big scores. And, at stages they pushed it out to 3 points or 4 points. Clare brought them back, but they always knew how to grind out a score and just, I suppose, grind down Clare as well. Now, absolutely, there's a debate there to say that, this game could have finished a draw at the end, absolutely. But, when the finest of margins and the tightest of margins are at stake, it is, you know, a testament to a really good, like a great team, that they're able to find those margins and put them on their side. You know, they're able to eke out, get that free, get that score, get that hook or a block. And like, you know, during the week particularly, I was there like on Monday, as we said, I said, you know, I reckon Clare are going to potentially win it, knowing full well that by Tuesday morning I was probably going to say in my head, oh no, Limerick are going to win this. But there was just something ringing in my head all week, and it was back to that message of, you know, there's a reason people are saying that you might beat Limerick once in the year, but it's very hard to beat them twice, and it's a daunting task for a lot of teams. And it's simply because of that craft and that character that they have. And, you know, we saw today, we can debate it till the cows come home about the free and all these different things, but the one thing you can't deny is Limerick's ability when either the chips are down or when they really need to get a score, that they go and find it. And that's, look, that is the testament of all the great teams over the years who have won All-Irelands or whatever it may be. That's been a trait that they have had. And look, this Limerick team, despite it all, has it in spades. And again, the other thing I'd say was, we talk about not having the depth. The likes of Cathal O'Neill has really flourished this year. You know, he's a player who's really stepped up, and he was a player that was really important today at really important times. You look at Adam English coming in off the bench, came in for a blood sub for Darragh Donovan, got a big point, and he was only on for about 30 seconds. You know, so to have those players, to have that impact, it was huge. But to be fair to Clare down the other end, Ian Galvin came on, and he had a great impact as well. But look, full credit to Limerick. You can't take it away from him. Just a great team.
Yeah, I mean, look, Clare will probably, Skehill, when they look back at it in the cold light of day, look at some of the wides, particularly when they were having some very good spells in the second half of that game. I know the narrative will all be about the free not given, and we can talk about that in detail in a moment, but when the chances were there, they left a few of them behind them. I'm sure when they go back and do the video analysis, they'll be sick that they actually didn't convert some very good scoring chances. Yeah,
like I suppose when you look at the statistics now, you know, it's one of the few times you see Limerick actually being outshot, if you know what I mean. Like I've stats here to say that Clare had 44 shots, which is an incredible amount of shots to get against a team like Limerick, and Limerick at 36. And yes, people will, and the neutral and the Clare people, maybe rightfully so, will look at the last 20 seconds and say there should have been a free in. But like more so, how to make your team grow and to make your team improve, you can't really focus on that potential free. You have to say, like, how come we have shot so many wides? So for Clare going forward, like that was a cruel way to lose. We stop putting up some comments, Will. Jesus, bad enough.
They're in the background. It's all about, you know, interaction. You know, people
hold on a
are
second now.
good enough to come along, stick comments.
We're talking about Clare and Limerick, so pull out the Clare and Limerick comments. Then we can do that later, right? Because I'm still a bit fuming now at the minute, so I need to kind of calm down. As they say in Shrek, I'm a donkey on the edge. Okay.
All right, I had no intention of breaking your flow. I was just trying to get some of the early comments out there where guys were spotting the 2E coming on. So by all means, continue about where Clare actually outshot Limerick there.
Yeah, like they did, and in fairness, there was opportunities that arose, and like I just think, you know, Tony Kelly's one on the left hand side that would have been a rousing score, but in contrast to that, like I was absolutely amazed by Limerick's, how would you call it, the way their ability to get a tackle, a hook, a block. You know, when Clare looked like they were through, looked like they were going for a shot, a score, just their defense was fabulous at times, and you know, it's very hard to beat the king once. You know, if you're coming at the king again the second time, to say you best kill the king. And I just think when Limerick got into the groove there midway through the second half, opened up a 3 and 4 point lead, you know, when you let a team like Limerick's caliber do that to you, it's very hard to claw them back. They just seem to have this knack or this ability, like you said in finals, to keep enough distance between yourself and the opposition, you know. So like, even though it felt like there was only a 1-score game, which it was, but Limerick's defence, their scramble defence, is so good and so effective that you need to be tip-tapping draws point for point. You cannot allow them to get you 2 and 3 and 4 ahead. And look, Clare ruined his chances. I know people in Clare will be emotional and they'll focus on the free that Liam didn't give, but I thought he gave them a good few soft frees, if I'm honest. I thought he gave Clare a few frees that maybe they weren't deserved. So I think in the balance of the whole game, it evened itself out, and I just think Limerick were deserving winners in the day, excuse me.
Yeah, the thing is, Murph, Limerick probably won this game in the third quarter. So Clare could have had 2 goals before half-time. They got the one when it came back off the post, came back down, and Mark Rogers put the ball into the net past Nicky Quaid. Quaid saved the second chance, the one where Ryan Taylor had teed him up. That second goal goes in, potentially could have been 6 points, the difference at half-time. But Limerick come out really strong. Aaron Gillane gets his goal. Again, maybe Gillane is a little bit unlucky after Reedy plays him in, and they almost get a second goal at that point. And then you've got Limerick getting into a position as they're just kind of ticking along, 119 to 114 up. You kind of think Limerick are going to, you know, I won't say coast home, but they're in a very comfortable position. Yet Clare left it remarkably nervy. And as we said, if they'd taken a few more of those chances, Clare could well have won this game.
Yeah, they could have, really. But it's funny, when I compare and contrast the two games, like, you're saying there, but the goals Clare missed, and okay, they could have went in 6 points up at half time. But if you look at Kilkenny, when they went up by 8 points at a really important stage of the game, the reaction of Galway then to come back, I don't know we're going to stay talking about Limerick and Clare, but the reaction of Galway to come back, and once Galway got their goal then, even though they were 5 points down or 4 points down, whatever it was, you nearly felt the momentum was with them. Because I text Skehill saying, we need to get a score here because we need to kill your momentum. So I actually think that, if Clare did get the score, you'd even see another big reaction from Limerick. And the funny thing is, when you're in the lead and a team comes back at you, it's a different feeling within a game when that starts to happen, because that's a mental battle you're then fighting within the game. So I just thought today, when you look at the two games, it was brilliant that we had such action and such drama in both games. But I think the way hurling has gone at the moment, the old cliche of that, there's no safe lead in hurling. I just think the caliber, the way teams are at the moment, and the resilience so many of these good teams have, you could say, yeah, Clare missed their chances and it would have kicked on, it would have been by 6 points. But I still don't think that means Limerick are out of the game. Absolutely not. And I'd even say the same, that if Limerick kicked on, maybe Clare's mental strength isn't as tough as Limerick, because Limerick have been tested in the steel of All-Ireland finals and different things more recently over the last few years. But it's amazing when you compare with Galway and Kilkenny that even though Galway went down by 8 points, once they got their goal, the momentum was completely with them. So it's such a tough one to call these days with hurling, to say that, if Clare did get those scores, and of course they wanted them, and if they had their time back, they'd want to take them. It's hard to 100% say that, geez, that might have had them out of sight, because it's just not the case anymore. Because when teams come back at each other like a steam train, it's so tough. But absolutely, Clare will look back at the whole thing in general as a whole and say, the opportunities we missed, how come Limerick didn't miss them at the other end when they had their chances at really important times? I think that's the bigger question that they'll ask. Of course, the stats read for, the amount of wides that Clare have. But Clare will still go back and look and say, if you look back at Clare and Limerick when they played in the Gaelic rounds in the round robin phase, it was Limerick that missed those. You think of Tom Morrissey's few wides, and it's nearly more the mental thing that does. Yes, it's a score on the board, but it's the momentum that it builds into the team and the belief that it brings into the team. So I think Clare will look back at that and say, yeah, lads, look, these are simple scores. We're training in Ennis and we put them over the bar every day. But it's the mental belief it gives to a team when the game is in the jaws that they take their scores. So, look, absolutely, Clare they'll root their chances, but that's the nature of it. Like Skehill was saying there, you get one chance, you don't take it, especially against Limerick, you're going to be punished.
Yeah, very reasonable point here being made by Conor as well about the fact that the break is probably good for Limerick now at this stage until the semi-final. They've got a few lads who've got strains and injuries at the moment that need to be right for the semi-final, and that is a scary thought now that they can kind of work their way through. And it's funny, that was my kind of first thought when the ball hit the net for Kilkenny at the end of the game, was Kilkenny will probably be quite thankful of the break too with their injuries, and also to avoid Limerick in the semi-final. There's still an advantage to be had by winning a provincial championship. I'm going to play what both the managers had to say about the free at the end, because obviously this is becoming a big talking point, and even just looking through the comments, particularly on the YouTube at the moment, it tends to be, well, Clare should have had a free, but they got a few soft frees earlier in the game. Maybe it balanced out. Also, some people arguing that Tony Kelly had kind of forward charged, and maybe that's why it wasn't given as a free. I thought there was 2 free instances after the game got restarted. It was kind of a crazy finish to the game. But this is what Brian Lohan first of all had to say about the fact that his team weren't given a free to equalise at the end.
We were anxious to get our quick buck out and we got it out, but the referee pulled it back. So then the crowd figured that it was over, and but it wasn't. There was another 30 seconds left. So look, got the crowd back off the field and played the last 30 seconds, and we didn't manage to score.
You played the last 30 seconds and maybe unlucky not to get a free? Yeah, we find it very hard to get those kind of frees. So that's disappointing. Is it frustrating? Obviously a lot goes in, it comes down to fine margins always, especially in these type of games, that not getting those decisions?
Yeah, sure, look, what can you say? It's frustrating. Would have loved to have got a free, but we didn't.
Okay, so that was Brian Lohan, and Brian Lohan did say to the print media as well that he felt that some teams maybe get frees a little bit easier than his side. And John Kiley responded after the interview from Brian Lohan. This is what he had to say about the suggestion that Clare should have had a free at the end.
Yeah, but these things happen, Aisling. I don't know whether it was or wasn't a free now. I saw the incident. To me, it wasn't personally. At the time, that was my call on it. But these things happen. In 2019 we could have had a 65, we could have had a line ball, we could have had lots of things. It didn't go away. And they'll know that as well. And they're a strong outfit. They're very resilient. I've no doubt that we're going to see lots more of them before the year's out.
And Limerick have bigger things to come than the end of the championship, you hope?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to take a break this week anyway. And
That's your break.
we have the 4 weeks now to get ourselves organised for the semi-final. We've done it before. We have our routine. Everybody knows inside that dressing room what we're going to do for the next 4 weeks. It's just about going and doing it now.
Right. Lads, what's your take on it? To me, I see 2 fouls in there that should have been given. Murph, you first. Was it a free?
Yeah, it was a free. And you can kind of, from a neutral point of view, you can kind of speak from both sides here. I agree with John Kiley also. It happens. It does happen when it's at this stage of the game. Not to say it's tough on referees, but like those frees were probably missed in other parts of the game. A bit more blatant there towards the end, but they were letting stuff go during the game, and there was probably 5 or 6 other frees that were let off during the game. When it comes to the end like that, absolutely, Clare can feel aggrieved that it was a free. But it's I do kind of agree with John Kiley there to say that these things do happen at the moment. That's just the structure we have in the GA. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. He pointed exactly to when they played us in 2019. Probably a 65. And they didn't get the break that day. When we go back and we play Limerick in 2018 in Thurles, John Donnelly was foul going through. Limerick bring the ball down the other end, score a point. We're out. They go on to win the All-Ireland. It's tough to swallow, and there'll be no consolation to Clare this evening. But does it stand to Clare more going forward to feel sorry for themselves that they didn't get the free at the end, or look at the misses they hit during the game, which completely negates any free at the end if they actually scored them? I think from a point of view now, they'll definitely be sore tomorrow, and you can feel aggrieved, and that feeling aggrieved is okay. Like, that's absolutely fine. But nothing's going to change now. So going forward, you just have to realise, well, maybe we put control and power in our own hands by going out, and maybe use that as fuel and use it as fire, that the game doesn't come down to a free or that you need a free at the end. Look, like I said, it's going to be tough pills to swallow for the Clare players this evening, and for Brian Lohan. And I admire Brian Lohan for his honesty also in his interview, because he wears his heart in his sleeve, and he says things that other managers probably won't say, because they feel that at times that maybe it'll come back to bite him in the arse if he does say it. But Brian Lohan has been very genuine that way. But like I said, I can see it from both sides. Bottom line is, it was a free, absolutely. But as John Kiley says, look, it happens in the game. It's unfortunate. It's part of the drama. It happens. But Clare should have got a free at the end, and that's just the nature of it. 2 parts for you, Skehill. The first one is, should Clare have had a free?
Yeah, I don't think it can be argued. I think if that happens in the first minute, 31st, 61st, I think that's probably free, and probably yellow card to go along with Peter Casey. And then when the play develops a bit more, I think it's a second free. So that's a tough pill to swallow. So what can they do? Because it's easy to be, the overriding sense of frustration is what will take over Clare at the moment, because they were entitled to a free. And granted, we can speak about missed chances, and we can speak about incidents that earlier on in the game, etc., shooting, you name it, right? But your focus will go on to that incident, and they'll feel aggrieved. They'll feel that there was no justice, etc. However, it's still, I'll be catching that incident and moving it aside, because you can't control that. All you can control now is what's in front of you. So when they go back training next week, they can control that free incident. They can control their shooting. They can control some of their passing. They can control. They should have had 1-3 extra. Like, there was a couple of, as I said, Taylor, J. Fitz had one. Tony Kelly had one. Points that were I would say, call them stone cold opportunities for points that wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't even talk about incidents then if that was the case, right? And then also, I think Brian Lohan, and I'm a big fan of Brian Lohan, I really am. I like what he's about. I like his character, I like his persona. But he needed to make a really big change to the full back line there way earlier. We haven't really seen Gillane. I think, well, in my opinion, I haven't really seen Gillane come to light in this championship yet. I haven't seen him being nowhere near as effective in the games previous as he was today. And you're putting a new guy, I suppose, I wouldn't call him a rookie, but you know what I'm trying to say, a rookie of this year's championship in on top of him, and he got skinned and he should have been moved way earlier. So I think sometimes I know Brian is focused on incidents and whatnot, but they as management should have protected the young fella a bit faster and got a change on Gillane straight away to stop him, basically stop the rot, because he was doing a huge amount of damage to Clare there in the second half specifically. So look, I think there's work on for everyone, both on and off the pitch in Clare, and I don't think they're in a bad spot, Les. In fairness, if I was to probably call it here now, I think, but the way the run's going to go, so they have Dublin next, correct?
If Dublin beat Carlow, yeah.
It's Dublin. Sorry, excuse me. I'm making I suppose an assumption. I might have.
Yeah.
They've Dublin next, and then they go to Kilkenny again in second in the a repeat last year semi-final. Would that be it?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think the way Clare, again, all due respect, they should come through Dublin with the quality squad they have, and then they're licking their lips to get Kilkenny again. So like, all's not lost. Yes, they haven't won a Munster final. Yes, it's been 25 years, and the wait continues. And like I saw a statistic today on Twitter, and I don't know who put it up, so excuse me. But like Ger Gillane is the last manager to win a Munster final with Clare since 1932. Like that is mad. That's what I had today. Like it was 1932. It was Munster or Ireland.
It has to be Munster because Gillane would have won Munsters in 95. And
95. But since Gillane, he's the last man since 1932. I can't believe that. For a rich hurling county is Clare. So, I know from Munster, and like we know Munster's like a religion down there, that you want to win every competition or every game that comes up. So 25 years, the way continues, but still there are serious contenders in Ireland, so all is not lost.
Okay. Well, Murph, you keep it under your hat at the moment what you think about whether they should have been ruthless and moved Cian Nolan, given that Gillane was doing as well as he was. The other one I wanted to ask you about, Skehill, in the closing stages, like, because the fact that the fans thought it was all over and the kids were on the pitch and celebrating after the Will O'Donoghue shot, and Eva Quilligan is trying to get the ball out and is trying to get set for a short puck out to try and get a score. I can't imagine that was easy for him to have that stoppage, people still getting off the pitch just as he was about to puck it out the second time.
Yeah, but sure, it's frustration because if I'm in his position, like we're a point down, like, we want the game to get on as quick as possible because, don't get me wrong, you have one eye on the clock as well, Will, and the time is a ticking. I think when that wide went on, I think time was up. Would I be right in saying that?
It was a few seconds over even at that point, yeah.
So like you're saying to yourself, I've only got one more shot here. I've only got one more puck and I have to find this right. And so when people coming on over the hoarding, and first of all, how they get in is a different story, right? Because usually the stewards line their positions there. So that's a work on, you could say, for the Gaelic grounds. But for that to happen, and I suppose there was discontent. There was it was manic. It was pandemonium for about 60 seconds. It does mess with you kind of mentally, that you have to reset yourself, take yourself out of game mode for 60 seconds, and put yourself back into it. And then when you're back into game mode, you've got a critical passage of play to commence or to execute. So, and like for them to get the ball down into the zone that they got it on was well worked by Eva. But yeah, that's not ideal, and that shouldn't happen in a Munster final.
Paul Murphy didn't get skinned too many times during his career, but he can give us his opinion on whether a ruthless streak was needed here, because Aaron Gillane ended up with 111, 1 goal and 3 of that coming from play, and he was hugely influential man of the match during the game. Cian Nolan obviously got the marking detail on him, and they've surely known for a couple of weeks that Cleary wasn't able to start. I know the loan said after the game that they gave him right up until Thursday, but because his shoulder had popped, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, there was no way he was going to be back in time. So you had to be thinking about options to come in there, and you knew that Gillane was going to be in around the square. It seems like Saina Mori comes on, I think, midway through the second half, after a time when Gillane has done serious damage just before the change is made. Should the Clare management have made the change a bit earlier?
Yeah, possibly so. Yeah, like it takes big calls during the game. It's easy to look back now, but when we were watching it there, it became very evident just the space as well. Now that's nearly a secondary thing afterwards. The space that was coming out in front of Gillane, like that's what Gillane thrives off, because if that space is in front of Gillane, he'll operate there all day, and he's very deceptively fast. Like, you look at him and it looks like he's just cruising, but he's lightning fast. And another thing he does as well is that if you could stand in close to Gillane in a radius where you would block him or another player, you'd block another player. But he leans back. It's nearly like he's using a lob wedge. He leans back and he pops the ball up into the air. So it's actually further away from you to block. So you need to be that bit closer. And the thing is with Gillane, when you get even closer to him again, sometimes he goes, okay, if he doesn't like how close you are to him, he'll actually go in behind you and drag you back in. So he'll stay in behind. And we've saw Gillane over the last few years whereby he does that. He goes in behind and he catches balls over lads. The best defenders catches balls over him, create scores, get goals, and he'll play it both ways. But certainly Clare should have made the change, and it's a tough call. But we've seen Lohan make those calls. He took off Hayes there. Was it last year? He took him off after 25, 30 minutes. Makes the big calls. Look, we don't know. We don't know what's going on in training. If that, maybe Nolan was the right lad for it, that he was flying it in training, and maybe they just accepted that Gillane was just firing on all cylinders, and maybe they saw fires to be put out in other places on the pitch. Maybe they didn't feel someone had the pace to match Nolan's, to match Gillane's, let's say, that he was the fastest player to have. But look, Gillane was running right, and you'd kind of have to think that certainly would have tried something else, maybe something with a bit of physicality, step in beside him. And right in saying Nolan got a yellow card. At what stage did Nolan get a yellow card? I'm right in saying I think he did get one.
Yeah, he got booked, yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, even that as well is something to think about when you have a defender on him, because that can dilute a defender's aggression at times when you're aware that we saw a week ago, was it 2 weeks ago, Gillane winning a penalty. He knows if a fella's on a yellow card, he will make you work hard for it. So potentially putting a fella with a clean slate on him is also another thing, because mentally as a defender, that can be tough when you know, like I marked Conor Whelan, I got sent off one day. It was only sending off I got with Kilkenny was I marked Conor Whelan, and I got a yellow card early on because one of the lads left his man. I ran through and tackled Jason Flynn because it was a goal scoring chance, yellow card. And straight away I'm on Conor Whelan, one of the most physical players, and I have a yellow card, and it kind of makes you nearly step half a yard, because you know, if he gets running into you, it's a very tough decision for a referee. So for a Clare point of view, that's something to be aware of. When you see your defenders with a yellow card and they're marking one of the most dangerous forwards in the country, you'd be kind of thinking, even from that point of view, let's make a swap here.
One of those what ifs there from Danny McWan. If the game had been played at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Clare would have probably got the free. It is difficult to get a free when you're in front of a partisan enough crowd, and even though there was a swathe of yellow and blue in the crowd from Clare, like Limerick still had a massive support there, and when the game was in the melting pot, maybe they would have got that decision away from home, I suppose, in Limerick.
Can I ask Will, now we couldn't hear rightly with the volume, was it 50-50 crowd-wise, or was it slightly Limerick?
I'd say maybe slightly Limerick, but not like, definitely there were big sections of partisan support from both teams there. Like, there's plenty of people who were there at the game who can maybe throw us in what their experience was, but that's what it looked like from the TV, at least, anyway. I did enjoy this one, by the way, and we'll stick in the game in a second, but coming in from Dennis Collins on Facebook. Enjoy the show from New Jersey every week, lads. How did Donkey on the Edge, which was Skell's own title for himself, get from Dublin so fast? It was a tough ending, to be fair. Limerick a boo. I didn't expect you to be here, Skell, to be honest, because first of all, myself and Murph hadn't heard anything from you since full time, which is understandable. But then I kind of thought there's no way he's making it back to East Galway in a couple of hours from Croke Park.
How do I answer this question?
Well, as your lawyer here, I would say that you obeyed all speed laws on the way home.
Gareth Escort.
There you go.
That's all I'm saying.
Is the barrier still standing on that toll bridge about 5 miles down from your house, or is there one to be fixed tomorrow morning?
I was like that scene in Gone in 60 Seconds. I flew out over it.
You threw €2 out the window as you're going down. Yeah,
I flew out over it. Look, I had a heavily pregnant wife, lads. I had to get her home. That was my only thought process there, was to get her home.
Bloody hell! Right.
We got in up the stairs, turned the laptop, sat down, and next thing, boom, your two faces there. So I've been in the nick of time.
No, you did very well. I really wasn't expecting it. So, let's talk about Kelly charging. There's obviously a debate that's going on here now. How could he be charging if he didn't even have the ball? Limerick tried to knock his head off his shoulders. Look, again, I think the contact is on Kelly. I think this is a free. I'm not.
It's not a charge. His head is down, right? A charge to me is when your head is up, you assess the situation, look at your opposition, and put the head down and go through him. Kelly's head is down, can't see where he's going, looks to get up, and is fouled. It's that simple. Yeah. That's simple. Even the still images, the slow-mo, like, even it proves that.
Yeah.
So move on.
I know this is going to.
That's it, Will. Move on.
River Power, Leinster lads so desperate for a good game in Leinster. They think that was a classic. It was a good game, but it wasn't great by any means. Lads in acre of space tapping over points. Murph, do you want to respond to that? River Power is a Tip fan, I think.
I think that has a tinge of insecurity about it from the Munster side, that there was such an exciting game in Leinster. No, it was great. It was a really good game. It was a great game. Yeah, there was bits of open defending and stuff, but there was parts of the game where I actually was making notes in the program. One of them I said was there was great high fielding during the game, which doesn't play into what we'd normally say at the moment with possession-based game and players popping the ball 30 yards and stuff. But I'm thinking of instance there, Hugh Lawler came out with a great ball. Dahi Burke made one or two big catches in the first half. Blanchfield then as well. Blanchfield made two big ones in the second half as well. On both ends, there was great high fielding, there was great tackling, great hooks and blocks at important times. Like you think of Páirc Welch going in for a point there at the end, which would have, I think, drawn it level, and then Galway go up the far end and Concannon gets the point. Great block there. I don't even know who it was. I think it would have been Fintan Burke. There was great bits of skill during the game. It wasn't nip and tuck at times. Kilkenny pushed it out by 8 points, but very exciting game, and there's great atmosphere at it as well. Now I did see people speaking on Twitter as well. I think I saw Brian Carroll and even Eddie Brendan saying on Twitter that, you know, it was a great atmosphere, but it would have been better atmosphere again, of course, if it was in somewhere like Tullamore or somewhere. Absolutely. But it was great. There has been Leinster finals there, even particularly last year, where it wasn't much of an atmosphere and wasn't much of a cut to it. But no, it was a really good game. And like, I mean, that finish, you can't make it up. You can't write it. It's just the way it is. It's heartbreaking stuff in one end and it's euphoria at the other end. It was a great game.
Yeah, you kind of touched this a little bit already, Murph, but this coming from Andreas Corcoran. Ask Murph how much a yellow card can take away defenders' aggression and risk taking away. Speaking here about the yellow card that Nolan got. You kind of touched on this already, but like, is it always playing on your mind if you've got a yellow card, particularly if you're booked, I'm assuming early in the game, you're always worried that a knock-you's tackle could see you get the line?
Not necessarily. Like, I would find the only scenario, it particularly as a full-back, if a half-back gets a yellow card, they're not too worried. But a full-back line gets a yellow card, you kind of think about it, because if there's space in front of you, it's dangerous, because when there is space in front of you, it's tough to, like, you have to kind of stick with your man but go with him. Whereas when the half back line sit back, it allows you to play from the front a little bit more, ironically enough. So when you're allowed to play from the front, it's back in your hands then, where you can actually go and take on the ball, and you want to be in front, because then you're not going to foul your man. You want to be in front, you want to be dictating. But it's tough when your half back line is getting dragged out. There's acres of space. And now the forward can dictate to the players out the field where he wants the ball played into. And you're playing second fiddle the whole time. That's when it's very dangerous. And it's tough then that if you do have that space in front of you and you're on a yellow, you're then looking up the field going, I need my half back line to sit back here, because I have to play second fiddle to this player because they're dictating the game to me now. And that's the danger of where you get lured into. Let's say you're on Conor Whelan. Conor Whelan dictates out to the side, ball pops into his hand. And if he goes to take you on, you have to keep your arms clean. You have to keep him away from him. Can't get wrapped up. If he leans into you, you kind of have to step back a small bit while trying to maintain a bit of contact. Just makes the job very tough. But I would say more specifically, that's for the full back line. Half back lines need to just get on with it if they're on the yellow card.
Yeah. Quite a few. This is an interesting one which came up from Patrick Coleman here, but you can take Skehill, which is that, lads, which is worse, the way the Clare lost the Munster final last year or Galway's lost today? Will it affect Galway in the same way as it affected Clare last season? I guess the psychological impact of coming off that defeat and then maybe not performing in the way that would have been expected against Kilkenny. Like, is there any risk that Galway carries some kind of psychological damage into potentially playing Tip in a couple of weeks?
I don't think so. I think, truthfully speaking, I think when Galway will assess this game, they'll obviously look at the couple of proper patches that Kilkenny had and say that even Galway were major facilitators of their own downfall, to be fair. For example, like the sharp work out in the second half, that was a major concern for us because we didn't look like we knew what to do with the second phase of the ball, etc. And even at the end, when Cillian got the goal, that looked like a controllable situation that we can learn from. Like, we can just say, put it out over the line. You know, you can make adjustments to that. Whereas Clare last year, I felt like Clare literally caught absolutely everything and threw it at Limerick and still came up short. Granted, they got great plaudits and it was treated like as a moral victory because they were probably the only team that came within a whisker of Limerick. They threw everything at them, almost had them, but didn't get them. Whereas Galway, you know, like I say, went down like 8 points at one stage, clawed their way back and got 2 points ahead. That can only be done through really good work, and they didn't close it out. And I think the reason they didn't close it out was obviously the issue at the end, but it was within their own control. So psychologically, I don't think so. I just think there'll be more frustration. Anthony, I think as a goalkeeper and defensive unit, they'll be hugely frustrated with the way they didn't deal with the ball, because they had numerous opportunities in that phase to get rid of it, and they just have to pick it up and go again. But like, yeah, it's frustrating. I don't think it's not psychologically damaging, but it's just frustrating. I think if you were to go back and look at a game like Tipperary when they played Limerick in the Munster final a couple of years ago, when they were 6 or 7 points up at halftime, and Limerick clawed them back, that's psychologically damaging because you just got overrun. Whereas in this instance, Galway just made a boo-boo at the end and paid the price. So now they have a tough task. Like, obviously, the route to the final, obviously the prize today is the Leinster Championship, grand. But they also would have got maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's 4 weeks off. They would have got rest and recuperation and then have a team come at you. Whereas now we've probably to go through the likes of Tipperary and go through the likes of Limerick. That's a tough. If we come through South Ireland and win it, by geez, we'll have earned it. As simple as that. Geez, we'll have earned it. This one is for you. This one is for you, Murph. Given we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, but the defenders one here, because this brings us round to Mikey Butler reference number 2, which is going to be brought up by me. But Shane Power, what is it with defenders being able to finish like a prime Brazilian Ronaldo? Dahi Burke against Dublin, and today Mikey Butler with an unbelievable finish. So yeah, first ever championship goal for Mikey Butler.
And he finished that like the best corner forward you're ever going to see bearing in goal.
Yeah, and like if you think about it, Cillian Buckley, out and out defender, and the two things you'd say about it was they stuck it into the ground. That's where you're meant to go. Like when we were watching Limerick and Clare, was it Rodgers went through? Where did he hit it? Head height at Nicky Quaid. And I turned to Skehill straight away. I said, what do you make of that one? He said, what did he do that for? Why did he hit it that height at him? And if you look at Mikey Butler going through, like if you're a defender, like granted, you might think defenders don't think about this a whole lot. But defenders, let's say if Mikey Butler was defending against that, he's running going, most likely the best chance I have here is if a forward hits it hip height or goes for top corner, I'm going to go try and block it up mid height. So Mikey Butler's running through. Granted, he hadn't a whole lot of time to think about it, but I'm sure what was in his head is that if I'm a defender coming in, defended myself here, I'd be blocking hip height, chest height, head height, going in somewhere there, hoping that the ball goes through there. And he just stuck it into the ground. Now, granted, he buried it in the bottom corner, but defenders don't see themselves in that opportunity so often. But you look at Dahi Burke as well. It's maybe because they don't think about it a whole lot. They're just through and they go, do you know what? I'm having a shot here. Whereas maybe sometimes a forward can overthink it and maybe tries too hard to stick it in top corner, stick it in the roof of the net when, just make it hit the back of the net. And like we see people there even saying about should Buckley's goal have been saved. Buckley gave it the best chance he could by bouncing it into the ground straight away because at that stage then the keeper only has a chance to see a flick of a ball coming through. Whereas if Buckley hits that, a flat strike, if the keeper sees that coming off the hurl, he knows there's a fair idea where that ball is going to go. But striking it into the ground, it could come through anywhere from ankle height up to chest height by the time it hits the net. So it was very clever finishes, but it's a fair point. The defenders have scored good goals so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, should the Buckley shot have been saved, Skehill, or is it a case of that ball has come through quite a few bodies and it's probably very difficult to see until the last second? What's your take on it?
I suppose I'd say from where I saw it, it looked like the ball was travelling at a slow speed, which it was. It was more placement than actually power. But I've been in that situation when you're actually sidestepping back and forth on the line to get a good view of it. And in fairness, like you don't know until the shot's taken where he's putting it. Is he putting it across your body, where you think his natural instinct would go, or is he putting down the line into the bottom corner? And like I was caught myself a few years ago against Cork, whereby I think it was Cork and got one long free, came in, heap of bodies, couldn't see it. And then the last second I saw it, it was literally 3 foot from the line, went to get his goal. When I watched him back on television, I went, geez, that's a terrible goal to concede, because it looked like he was crawling in. But in real time, I just couldn't see it through legs, through bodies. And like everything in front of you is not static. Everything in front of you is moving. So if things are moving, you're trying to move with it, and then someone makes another movement and you're trying to go again. And next thing before you know it, it's shot. It's in the goal. Yeah. It's just the nature of the position, lads. Like if Cillian was one-on-one with Owen there, or with Aine, excuse me, and with no bodies in front of him, then I'd say something, because he had 14, 15 yards to make a save. I do say, though, that with all the bodies in front of him, it's very hard for a keeper to make adjustments. You know, put it this way, it wasn't the worst goal we conceded throughout the day, if you ask me.
Yeah. What was the worst one?
I was very disappointed with the Mikey Butler one. There's two goals, right? So the Wally Walsh one, I'd be very disappointed with how we defended the high ball. And the Mikey Butler one, no one tracked him. No one tracked him. Like he was allowed to come in, and I was watching the forward when Mikey Butler was making the run, and he just kind of was jogging back. Next thing Mikey gets onto it. That's a terrible goal to concede, because that just puts all into question your defensive setup and maybe your attitude and work rate at a small touch.
Because it's a nice catch, Skehill. There's a nice 1-2 to open it up to Butler to get the run. But how does he end up with about 20 yards of space directly in front of him? Because
what happens if you look at the run again, right? I can't remember the Kilkenny forward that was moving. This is from behind the goal, right? In the direction Mikey's running towards. I can't remember the Kilkenny forward that was moving to the left. I think he brought Dahi or someone with him. It opened a bit of space, and then you can see our forward behind him just jogging back. Next thing, Mikey's by himself. And what's happened is the Kilkenny forwards are very smart. Never run towards the man, run away from the man and pull the defender with you, because the defender has got a woeful decision to make. Yeah. And even when Mikey came in, he actually dummied the hand pass. And I can't remember, was it G-Mac or Darren Morris or someone actually hesitated just for a moment, because obviously they were probably expecting a hand pass, and then Mikey gets it and puts it in. Great finish from the defender. But that would disappoint me, because it's simply down to a work rate situation. I put it this way, if that was Limerick, you'd have 2 or 3 lads back there. You know, but alas, here we are.
Yeah. Ronan C. probably wondering what many of us were doing at the same time. Is it bad that as a Kilkenny man, when Mikey Butler drives up the field for that goal, my first thought is of Scott?
I'm not joking, lads. I said to you, I nearly spat out my chips. I went,
oh god! As soon as I saw it, I said, I can't believe this.
And even Grace hits me elbow, and she goes, "Is that the guy Paul's always on about?" I said, "Yes, it is." So I said, "Like, here we are."
And was I telling you, you got some new artwork inside in the house as well? Was I saying that to you? There's a small bit of artwork there behind me.
I sent you the photo of Mikey Butler celebrating. You can get it framed and get it in the background for next week.
I might get this one moved and get the framed one of them celebrating. That might do the job for me now. It's grand to look at for the breakfast in the morning. I might get one now that also says Cillian Buckley and Mossy Keogh and who's the other one? Wally. Sorry, Skehill. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sure you're very sorry.
To be honest, I couldn't believe it was him. Like when the ball broke and I saw it was Butler and I went, there's no way he's taking this on. He's shortening the grip and tapping this over. Yeah. And then next thing I'm like, there is only one thing in his mind and he is just going for goal. Yeah, perfect finish across goal. Like, Skehill, when we talk about goalkeepers trying to save them, like it's nigh impossible to save what Butler did there. He puts it right across goal into the bottom corner. Like, Éanna Murphy's no chance.
No chance, but two things as well, you see. When you look at the conditions of today in Croke Park, it's a hard sod. So when you put the ball into the ground there, you actually can't read it. You can't read it. Is it going to come up? Is it going to go down? But what it will do is it'll pick up actually a bit of pace. You mightn't think it will, but it actually will. It'll take off the ground and pick up pace. And that's why it's two things very hard to do. Number one is judge the flight of the ball, and number two, judge the pace of it. So if you're moving in there, and even Murphy, I think it was the Gillane that was running through in the second half, and he hit it off his right high.
Yeah,
that's a very, very poor finish for a man of his caliber. Like if he hits that low, chances increase dramatically that it's going to be a goal. And like he should know as well, because I think Owen Murphy himself pulled off a couple of saves. It could be 17 or 18, I can't remember the year, where Gillane hit them very, very high.
Yeah.
And like, if he puts him on the ground, that's 2 goals for Aaron Gillane, and the same today. But he has a habit of that though. But like, great. I think Kilkenny's finishing today across the 4 goals was excellent. Because like Mossy got in, Wally hit the ball on the deck, Mikey on the deck, and Cillian Buckley on the deck. Really good. And then Conor Whelan on the deck, and Jason Flynn. Did Jason Flynn go on the deck? I can't.
Did, yeah. Jason Flynn's did, It kind of, Owen Murphy was falling away from it. Wasn't that the one? Yeah.
And like, case in point, you look at the shots that were saved today. We're talking about Gillane's shot on Quilligan saved, high level. Yeah. We're talking about somebody took one on Éanna Murphy today. I can't remember who it was. Up on the Hill 16 side, high level, easy save to make. Like their saves keeper's going to make all day.
Yeah.
Put it on the deck.
Yeah, I presume Scooby D is asking about did Dermot Burns not score today? He didn't, because we were all checking our fancy hurling team earlier on. He had a free that he pulled at one point, and then Gillane was hitting the frees reasonably well, so Gillane stayed on the frees. But still, Limerick left a few frees behind them today. Maybe that's one of those kind of small chinks in the armour. Maybe you're reaching for the smallest thing possible when it comes to Limerick maybe being slightly off. But there you go. This is Dante saying that the tickets were split 50-50. Yeah, I mean, there was a massive Clare crowd in there as well. And it couldn't have been a part-time crowd. So there you go. Pretty much 50-50. James Coughlin staying the same. So maybe the Porky Queef point doesn't hold anything when it comes to that free as well. Skehill must have left early. I don't think he did. And the Burke.
I did not. In the Burke.
A terrible accusation to make there as well. And you would imagine from the lads that all around the GA, the Rory Hayes would have had the pace to take Gillane. Do you want to take that question, Murph? Would Rory Hayes have been the ideal guy to have on him?
Yeah, possibly. But I suppose Rory Hayes has had a bit of a checker past times. A brilliant defender at times, absolutely. But like I said, it was last year, wasn't it? Munster final, was it potentially, where he was taken off after about 30 minutes? Lohan took him off. So like it potentially just says to me there that there's something that Lohan has seen in training that, obviously excellent defender at times, but maybe Nolan had just showed a bit more. I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to figure it out. But like, it's the whole thing of hindsight's a brilliant thing. Like, you'd probably nearly try anybody at this stage just to change it around because you saw how it went. But at the time, I don't know. Is there enough in it to say that Rory Hayes was the man for it either?
2 points made about Paul Murphy in the last couple of moments that I've picked out here. Firstly, Richard Carroll. Paul Murphy is a saucy sevens hurler. Clare were absolutely robbed. Take the first part only.
Yeah.
Are you a saucy sevens hurler?
Let's go on, Richard Carroll. This is a man from Carrick Swan down below in Carrick and Shore. Plays 7-a-side, so Defence Forces has a hurling tournament every year. There's one competition's 11-side, one sevens. And I was in the sevens this year. So the sevens would be the second what would you call it, division of it, I suppose. So I was playing full forward on the 7-a-side team for Defence Force Training Centre in HQ. So I was saucy.
Bomber
Tell you one thing, I was landing balls down on top of me, and I was catching it and getting flaked by fellas from the Air Corps and from all different places. It got fairly heated now at times, but good crack. I think actually Ryan Mullaney was on the goal actually for the game.
The Air Corps, those pesky Air Corps boys.
High balls coming down. The Air Corps don't like the high balls coming down.
I can picture like in America, you see those baseball games between the police force and the firefighters. Out Tremazed, yeah. Our army in the fucking Air Corps. They do
actually get fiery enough, because I used to be in the barracks in Kilkenny, and Kilkenny barracks would have a lot. Like, I mean, at one year inside in the barracks, we had myself, Ed McCormack of Thurles Stars, Larkin, Stephen Malumphey, Richie Reid, Colin Fennelly. Like, there was, and that was imagine a small side tournament inside in the army. Like, I mean, it was serious enough stuff. But I was playing against Kilkenny this year, so there was a few boys there now. There's lad Johnny Fannan up from Clockballacalla, and I tell you one thing, he was absolutely lacing me. So, Ash, look, all in good spirits, Ken.
Yeah, I'm sure you took it too.
It was played up in Ormore, or Renmore.
Renmore, yeah.
In the fields there, yeah. Rock hard.
Yeah.
You can defend yourself on this one as well. Kieran Fahey. Lads, in 2014, did Kilkenny rob tip of an All-Ireland when Paul Murphy fouled? Penalty far out, fair distance, and missed it. Not sure about the second part, but did you pull off a cynical foul in 2014?
I fouled Bonner. No, it wasn't actually cynical. When he was running in, he was playing centre forward at the time, and he came running in on the goal. And Bonner kind of does this thing where he weaves as he runs. So it's a chance that as he's running in towards goal, he makes you check your stride so you're not sprinting after him. But also, if a chance your legs cross, then it's a free. But as I was reaching, just he's about to get the goal to reach for the flick, we just got caught up and hit the deck. Like, it wasn't plain to see. If you go back and look at it, I didn't grab his jersey. I didn't do anything. I was reaching in to flick the ball. And I can't remember, was it Barry Kelly, I think, was refereeing that game? Barry Kelly even came in. I don't even know I think I got a yellow for it, actually, funny enough. I actually think I did get a yellow, but Barry Kelly came in. He said, listen, it wasn't, like, he didn't warn me to say that was cynical or anything. He just went, he got caught up, but he said he was going in on goal. So it was like grand. But that was at the time where the penalty had to be struck. It was 3 players, and it had to be struck before the 21. So it was actually tougher on the forward, but like, that was just the nature of it. That wasn't me making the rules. That was the GA rules, and that was the rules that were at the time. So it was tougher for Shamie Callan, I think, took it, and I think Richie Hogan saved it, actually.
Yeah, a couple of off-the-beaten-track questions before we get back on point here. Will, can I ask why you're drinking out of a jar? I'm not. I'm drinking out of a little pint glass there, which is getting slightly blurred, but there you go. It's my Waddy Orange this time round. It is not a jar.
That'd not be cool to do this day and age, kind of a hipster type thing, to drink out of a jar. Reduce, reuse, recycle. That's what you do.
There you go. No, it's just a straight up pint glass, which I'm sure I stole from a pub at some point. Thomas Hartigan, great game. Limerick off favourites now for the All Ireland. Clare could be there also, but hot opposition. Tommy and Tip. And this one also about interior design coming in from Esmond 1. Are the two boys in the same room? Same paint on the wall behind. This is surely just a case, lads, of like, I've got a creamy colour on the wall at the back. This is just all in. A kind of an off-white colour is what we've all got on. I can confirm one is in Kilkenny and one is in Galway.
Absolutely,
I'm sure between the three of us, we chose the colours too. Yeah.
One thing we do have in common, we didn't pick the colours.
Yeah, when we're in the house, I could choose outside. When we got inside, I had no choice. I was told what we're getting.
So what, you got to build the sheds, but nothing else then, yeah?
I got a bit of stone outside and a bit of tarmac. That's
lovely.
it.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah, she got flipping couches and fucking beds and memory mattresses and you name it.
These all sound nice, by the way. You shouldn't be giving out about them. Like, is your house, by the way, exactly the same as it was on Gogglebox?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they come in and move your stuff around?
They did, yeah. Yeah, they come in and shifted everything. Like, we have a lovely big TV up, let's say, sitting down over the fireplace, and like it's really comfortable leaning back, but they couldn't get the right camera angle, so they shift us around and bring in a different TV. It wasn't very nice.
So your NFL position was stolen away from you?
Completely, yeah. My I call it my vegetation position, to be honest, where the recliner's just out and I'm just like this. I'm basking in my own house.
Cormac Quaid as well making a good point. David Reedy. Look, David Reedy, we've spoken about a few times, and I remember Joe Quaid was saying at our live show last year that, like, you know, this is a guy who always had the talent, and talk about him in Clare and there today. Big involvement this year, 3 huge points and the assist for Gillane's goal as well. And if Gillane had sucked that second one away, if he'd given a Mikey Butler finish, he would have had a very heavy hand potentially in the second goal there as well. So, it's... Again, a very useful player to come through this year, Skehill. Like, and that's if Limerick are going to succeed. Like, some of their top players haven't been 100% on the ball, and Cian Lynch has had this injury. You need lads like Cathal O'Neill and like Reedy to actually step up and be big players this season.
Yeah, let's contrast it to last year. So last year when Keane Lynch was obviously out, Peter Casey was returning, we were saying the same thing. Was there a chink in Limerick's armour? But the trouble was, all their players were firing on full cylinders. So like Finn was firing, Hayes was firing, Hannon, all these boys, Burns obviously heard of the year for him, Hegarty, they're all firing on full cylinders. Whereas now you think they're kind of slightly stuttering, just to a degree. Like today, Hegarty got a point, I think, and you'd expect in big games like him that there'd be more of a return. So there's a different feeling this year. Now it's very hard to verbalise or put your finger on it, but it just feels like that Limerick on any given day now could be beaten. They could be beaten. Whereas last year, or even after the number of years, you'd say that if Limerick are ahead, they won't be caught. Whereas this year, I'm saying, Jesus, it's opposition depending. Don't get me wrong. It's hard to see, truthfully speaking, how they don't get through to a final again with the way they're operating and plus the break they're going to have. But yeah, I think if any year they're going to get caught, caught is the wrong word. If any year the throne is going to get shaken, it could be this year.
Yeah, I see this is coming in from Tom Hall. Double header for Leinster and Munster finals. This is where people debating about Croke Park at the moment. I think the thing that's fairly clear, they're not going to have them on the same day next year. Like, don't get me wrong, Murph, I really enjoyed that we went from one game to another, but in the circumstance like you guys going to the Leinster final, you'd prefer to actually have the option to attend the Munster final, but also maybe to sit down and enjoy it in its own day, as opposed to, I think you guys were in the Croke Park Hotel and saw the end of it up on the big screen when you got in. You'd prefer if they were on different days, I guess.
Yeah, you would. It's a great weekend. It's a great weekend to be looking forward to a match on a Saturday and a match on a Sunday. And like that's the way the All-Ireland semi-finals are going to be as well. You're going to have one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday. And it's great to focus on one game. You have a bit of a chance to digest that, maybe look back on it. The talk and the focus is on that game. And then you have the next match the following day and all the focus on that. But like, sure, at the moment, it's brilliant in one way. It's absolutely brilliant. Like we had a great day of watching sport. And what was great now actually as well was inside, in fairness, now we were in the Croke Park Hotel before it, and a huge crowd, actually enormous Galway crowd there, in fairness, and there was a good Kilkenny crowd as well, but everybody was glued to it. Everybody was absolutely welded to the Munster match, and you could hear cheers and different things at different times. Skehill, you'll agree with me there. I think there was a good few lads who were supporting Clare. A
lot of people supporting Clare. We used to
we were about 30 seconds behind. We had an iPad.
So Owen Lynch used to hurl for Galway, a great tournament man. He was sitting beside us and he came prepared with kids, as you can imagine, bringing the iPad, probably trying to get them distracted for the day. So he planked it up on the table. So we had an iPad here in front of us, then turned to my left with a phone. And then if you were tall enough, you could see the television. But the television was ahead of the iPad, and the television was ahead of the phone, and the phone was ahead of the iPad. Like, it's just pandemonium for a finish, yeah.
It was gas because there was a big roar. Clare got a goal, but we'd be watching the screen and sure, it might be just tipping around midfield somewhere, nothing going on. Yeah. We're a minute behind, like, so Clare got a goal and two of us would stand up and have a look up and we'd report to the rest of the 10 people that are sitting around the screen to say, Clare about to get a goal here now, so just how long the ball comes off the post. So
Mystic Murph, yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get bets going. I bet you a tenner Clare score a goal in the next 30 seconds. But yeah, good atmosphere, in fairness to it.
Little agreement on whether it was a good final or not. John S. Many the bad hurling match which has been sugar-coated by a pulsating finish. If there's an exciting last 5 minutes, it doesn't matter how crap it was up until then. I don't know. Like, again, I think both teams had good spells in it all around the GA. The lads were kind of making that point.
It's hard to say that was a bad hurling game today.
No,
I thought it was a good game. It did lack maybe some of the intensity at different periods. I think that's the point the lads are making here. Leinster final lacked intensity. Both teams experienced periods of dominance until the last 20 minutes when it became quite helter-skelter. Like, I suppose, Kel, if you're looking at this from a Galway point of view, you would have had to have been happy with how Galway hurled, particularly in the first 10, 12 minutes of the game, given how flat they were in the first half against Dublin the last day. That at least Galway came out fighting properly at the start of the game. I think it was 6-1 or 6-2 early on.
Yeah. And I took a note that like, first and foremost, right, I can take the skills, the strength, whatever, all that stuff. I can move that aside. And the first and foremost, I look for is our attitude and our basically our execution of work rate. That's the first thing, right? So I was looking for this today. And in fairness, in the first few minutes, that was really, really good. I thought our defensive setup on the opposition puck out was really good. We forced Owen Murphy to go long on numerous occasions. Then we got up high, contested, get the breaks and move on. Where we found a bit of trouble, and it seems like when a team do an adjustment mid-game, we seem to be slow to react. So TJ Reid, if you remember, came way out around midfield, nearly picking up on his own half back line. That created an ocean of space for Kilkenny inside, and it just causes a bit of hassle. And it took us a while to get to the on top of it, and then it felt like we were struggling to get into half time as a draw. So I actually said at halftime that I think we're in a touch of bother. If the game stayed going the way it was going on that trajectory, I thought Kilkenny would win the game. And then to come out in the second half, you're actually hopeful. And And then we start with the sharp go strategy, and it just completely falters. And we go 8 points down in the 47th minute. And you're wondering, where is the spark going to come from? But it came. The spark came. Like Murph was saying earlier on, when a team is coming from behind, it's nearly better position. It's nearly preferable to be the hunter as opposed to the huntee. And that's what happened for Galway. And they kept going. And I thought we'd see it out, obviously, in the 74th minute, but not to be. But there's good things we learned there. I think it's a stark improvement on what we produced against Kilkenny, actually, in Nolan Park, and also against Dublin and Croke Park. Now, I will say, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't won in Croke Park in a long time. So Kilkenny have beaten us. Dublin was a draw this year. Limerick, Kilkenny beat us last year. We didn't play in Croke Park for the Leinster final, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you've lost 2 semi-finals against Limerick, haven't you?
Yeah, Dublin beat us the year before in 21 in the group. We didn't make any semi-final knockout. Limerick beat us in the semi-final in 20. Kilkenny beat us in the Leinster final in 20. We beat Wexford in the semi-final in the Leinster Championship. So we haven't won in 7 games in Croke Park, which is a serious concern for me. And that's not against just one team. That's against a variety, a variety of quality opposition. Limerick, Kilkenny, who have beaten us. Kilkenny beaten us 3 times, Limerick twice, and Dublin we haven't beaten them.
As a player scale, does that ever get into your mind?
I wouldn't say so, Will, because today I had to think about it, because I was just talking to Grace on the way down, and I was saying, geez, it doesn't feel like we've won in a while in Croke Park. And when I started going through it, I was thinking, God, it was back to my own playing days when we won, which is frightening. Like the last big game, you could say, because even you go back further, in 2019, we didn't qualify out of Croke Park because it was the round robin stage, remember. In 2018, Limerick beat in the final.
Yep.
Clare, we didn't win the semi-final, if you remember. We drew with them. Kilkenny in the Leinster final. Kilkenny in the Leinster final, we didn't beat them. We drew with them. So you see where I'm going? We've only won 1 game in Croke Park.
Since 17?
I'm going to say since the Ireland final in 17. That's frightening. That's right. We've only won 1 game in Croke Park since the Ireland final in 17.
That's remarkable. Yeah. If anyone wants to correct us in the comments, but I think Skell's sequence.
I'm pretty accurate now with that. I think I'm pretty.
No, well, look, you're involved with a lot of those games, so I would trust you on that one entirely. This is a good one for you, Murph, coming in from Enda Burke. What have we learned today about how to beat Limerick, or have we learned anything about how to beat Limerick today?
Press their puck out.
Yeah. I think pressing their puck out certainly is a launching pad from it. What have we learned? Like, the one thing we do know about Limerick is that they're happy to play it a variety of ways, but at the moment, their confidence and their stickness isn't where it was. Certainly, like if you even go back to the league final, that just looked like this Limerick team isn't going anywhere. But since then, they've now the 4 weeks will stand to them, but it was a little bit jarring the last while. They couldn't seem to get their flow, and I think Clare's intensity was certainly a big part of that today. Like Clare just weren't letting Limerick breathe. And for a lot of teams will look at it and say, okay, this can be done. And a lot of teams will look at it and say, maybe we have a bit more physicality than Clare to actually go and do this as well. So I think a lot of teams would have believed at this stage that physically Limerick can't be bullied at times. But we have seen it happen. As Skehill has said, press their puck outs. Giving an easy ball to Clare to start the launching pad going forward is probably a very foolish move to do. But the ability to not only press their puck outs, but if you see what Limerick are really good at is they can press, but then they can also, as a unit, as a whole team, realise then when we're now going to sit back and we're going to allow them. So it's nearly unsettling for an opposition team that they come up in waves and press the puck out and then they sit back. That's when they were doing things really well and they were in their prime. And I would just say that other teams need to know how to do that as well, because Limerick do have so many tools at their disposal whereby, pressing the puck out for the first 20 minutes might go really well, but then they might get to grips with you. And if you're not able to change it, then they might go, actually, we're getting a bit of change off these long balls. I do think a big part of it as well is, unless you have out and out, lightning fast, full back line, you do need cover from that half back line, preventing that ball being popped into Gillane in front of them. It's not even a case that they have to be there. It's just closing out that landing area where that ball can land into and just being aware that flood back. It's almost like you're saying, like what Skehill was saying there, like with the Galway lads, where they fail to track the runners going back. Like flooding back as a team is hugely enormous, because Limerick are so good at, you see just the players coming forward, Barry Nash up the line, Kyle Hayes and these lads. Now they've been stifled out a few times, but if you can get your team to work really hard and chase back and get those hooks and get those blocks and turn over the ball, that'll kill their momentum a small bit. But there certainly has been indicators, and there's been learning points as well. But I wouldn't say a huge amount from today either, though, necessarily.
But do you think, you know, if you're watching Limerick now, when I'm watching them, right? So I think that the opposition forwards have to mark their man, mark the backs, and the opposition backs have to mark the space. So like if you're a half-back line for Clare now, you have to kind of mark zones and allow Hegarty as runners these zones and try to contest with your midfield. Like your midfield have to be very narrow so they can cover the 3 positions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they put your midfield over, you're getting screwed, and they're going to puck out the opposite side into space. Like we've seen Morris and Hegarty. That hasn't happened an awful lot this year. We don't see the movement from Limerick whereby they're coming into the middle and splitting. And maybe I feel like, truthfully speaking, it's because Kyle Hayes is not in the half-forward line. Like Kyle Hayes last year, remember the final, Murph, like him in conjunction with with Hegarty and Morrissey. They played puck with their own puck out and caused like Paddy Deegan and Richie Reid ferocious problem. That just doesn't seem to be happening at the moment. I think the key thing is I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we don't put enough emphasis on the fact that Sean Finn is injured and doesn't allow the Dan Morrissey wing back situation, doesn't allow the Kyle Hayes situation progress. You know, like that's a big launching pad because Limerick's 2 biggest facets of play where they get scores off is their puck out and your puck out. They're brilliant to turn over your puck out, but they don't seem to be as aggressive or as I don't know. They don't seem to be getting the same kind of fruition of the opposition puck out as they were in years previous.
Asked here as well, is the show in association with My Waddy? It's not, but if anyone who watches the show regularly, generally, I think orange cordial is our drink of choice, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Well, it's the second drink of choice today.
maybe hold on just a little while before launching back into that. Give it a few minutes there. This one coming in from the long fella, which you can both take. Did the Galway backs wait thinking it was a back with the ball coming in against them? As in, like, do you naturally kind of back off, Skehill, when you see it's Cillian Buckley as opposed to TJ Reid, who's lining up as a shooter in that situation?
It's hard to say because I think the first man he met was Pádraig with no hurl. Right, so that.
Well, he'd kicked the ball and then he would have been the next to him. Yeah.
In that situation, I think you're looking for a tackle. And when I say a tackle, I'm talking about any kind of tackle at all. Like take a yellow card. That would be classed to me now as a really good foul. Sometimes I suppose the honesty comes out too much in the player whereby you're trying to play the ball. But I just think go off the legs, Sean Kavanagh style, put him down and get yourself reset again. Because if he gets through, as you can see, the damage is $2,000.
You just answered Frank Hogan's question there. The Galway defender should have pulled Cillian to the ground, take one for the team. Line your goal, I guess, Murph, at that point. Take the foul, take the card maybe even, and then say, right, TG, you're going to have to plough this through a line of bodies to score.
So, not going to cross you, like, Pádraig Mannion would have got a second yellow card. He'd have been sent off. But so
last play of the game, though.
We'd have got 30 seconds. We'd have lined up 13 lads on the in line and away with it. And if he scores, he scores. I could take that. I could take that. If he scored like TJ did against Thomas a couple of years ago. Whereby he rifled 21 against Turles, but the way they scored the goal today, that's sickener.
The answer to this is yes, by the way. Was Skehill excited to get a picture with the great Paul Murphy and Johnny Glenn? He definitely was. Meeting Showtime Murph, that was a big moment for Paul Murphy.
Yeah,
met your alter ego.
I was in the queue. I was going up to get a drink. Was it a half time? I think it was Skehill. I was getting a half time. I think you started roaring at me. You'll never guess who this is. I was like, who is it? How am I meant to know? It's the real Murphy, guys. It's Showtime Murph. But actually, did we figure it out? Was the surname Murph in the end?
I don't think so.
I don't think it is. No.
No, the tweet that's up is not Murphy. It's what was it? A Donovan or something?
I have it here somewhere.
We're chatting away to him. Actually, I have to call it out as well. His friend was wearing a Galway top. And he was from Waterford. He said he couldn't bring himself to wear a Kilkenny top. I said, Jesus Christ. If you should have just told me you were 2 Galway men and just leave it at that.
There you go. That's the real Showtime Murph. Sean Friend, question, lads. Definitely the bonus pod lately. Do any subscribers? Okay, so the bonus pods generally will be in the Hurling Pod feed. We haven't had a bonus pod the last couple of weeks for 2 different reasons. One was because we've been doing so many lives and the lives have gone a little bit longer, so we haven't done it in a bonus pod format in the way that we usually record them. And then last week, time was at the essence because I think Skehill was going back out with the Galway management that afternoon. Murph had an engagement as well, and we ended up kind of rushing the recording last week. Otherwise, we would have done a bonus pod. I think next week, very good chance we go back to a bonus pod. But yeah, the Hurling Pod feed is the best place to be if you want to pick up all the content there as well. They all fired up for the first 20 minutes of the second half. We're looking at the game between Kilkenny and Galway. So there was that kind of, just that little bit of excitement about it all. I've got a few other comments I've pulled up here, which are kind of good, wider discussions around everything as well. Gary Farrell, is it a concern for Murph that Mossy has gone off injured the last 2 games within the first 20 minutes? So obviously he picked up a knock today. Well, like, aside from even from Mossy, quite a few injuries picked up by Kilkenny at the moment. Obviously there was a lot of back and forth talk about what the specialist was going to do with Adrian Mullen's thumb, and then he wasn't able to play today, and then there's a couple of changes that were needed before the game. So maybe Kilkenny will just be happy, take the Mossy question as well, but maybe Kilkenny will be happy to do the best part of a month to try and get some of these injuries cleared up.
That's exactly it. I mean, from the Mossy point of view, yeah, of course, it's concerning any player coming off with an injury after that stage. It seemed to be that he tweaked his hamstring, and I think that's what the issue is at the moment, is that he has a tight hamstring. But look, up until then, he was flying it. I mean, he got the goal, took it really well. And as you said, like, Kilkenny have a chance now to manage this over the next 4 weeks. They do have injuries, but now they can also point to the fact that, you know, when they're back in training now, they say, lads, this is why we have the panel. You know, this is why we have, you know, we talk about the rest of the players on the panel. You've all went out and proved that we can win a Leinster final and go and beat a really good team, even if we are carrying injuries. And, you know, the pressure will be on players now over the next 4 weeks, because you will have players coming back from injuries as well. Like, you know, Richie Reid wasn't there today. Seems to have picked up a knock in training. He'll be coming back in. And the half-back line hurled really well today as well, you know. So it puts pressure on not only lads who have been in the team, young lads who have come in, put their hand up, taken a jersey, and now you're going to have players come back from injury. Adrian Mullen, I don't know, you talk to one person, it seems to be he's out for the year. You talk to the next person and said he might be out for 4 weeks or so. So I think until the next time we see that Adrian Mullen's back in full training, we'll know then that he's back fit and ready. But I do take it as a big positive that Kilkenny could go, while shipping so many injuries, and particularly even over the last week or 10 days, that they were able to take so many injuries and still go and perform to a really, really high level today. So it's positive. But look, absolutely, the 4 weeks, Kilkenny or Galway would love the 4 weeks. And it's great. Like, as a Kilkenny supporter, you're delighted now because they get to step back, you know, get the ice on the injuries, you sift through the ashes of this and see where we hurled well, but also we let an 8-point lead slip. That's another thing they're going to say to themselves as well. So they have time now over the next week to recover, to focus on it and say, listen, we're going to be facing most likely Clare in an All-Ireland semi-final, and we need to have our house in order. And that 4 weeks is ideal time to do that.
Yeah, again, fair point by Michael Redden here. All I'm hearing is Conor Cleary been a big loss for Clare. Limerick without a 4-time All-Star, best cornerback in the country, and Sean Finn, no 2-time hurler of the year available in Cian Lynch. The result is the 5th Munster in a row. Again, we've said this over the last 2 years. Limerick have got this way of when players are either injured or out of form, someone else plugs in and the system just keeps going. That machine is just year after year after year. And, any doubts the people would have had, Skehill, about this Limerick team as well, they've really answered them. Like, if you think a few weeks ago, the narrative very much was, Limerick have to make sure they finish up in 3rd place to stay in the All-Ireland. Their Munster crown is probably gone. And here they are with the Mick Mackey back in Hannon's hands again.
But even, I think it's been also very much, it's been an emotional test for Limerick, a mental test, if you could say, because if you go back even further, the question was posed to us here, I don't know what week it was, would anyone come within 10 points of Limerick? And at the time, truthfully speaking, it probably was a valid question because of how Limerick were showing such dominance throughout the league and the way they kind of disposed of Kilkenny. But then the way it progressed through, and they've come through a very, very tight Munster Championship. And some will say, yes, by the skin of their teeth, grand. But at the end of the day, they're going home with the cup again today. And like, if anyone questions Limerick's standing in history, like they want their head examined, because you said there at the start, you said 3 leagues, 4 Ireland, and 5 Munsters.
Yeah, 12 of the finals they played in, they've won. That
is absolutely colossal.
Sick is what it is.
That's a 100% record in the finals. Like, I don't know, is there any team in world sport that exudes that kind of dominance as Limerick? And granted, you can say what you like, but at the end of the day, they're winning these games, right? And I have to point. Do you remember the time Dublin were playing Mayo back in the football? Do you remember there was back and forth to Dublin Mayo there for years when Dublin went through the 5 in a row, and they beat Dublin, or they beat Mayo in a replay, and then maybe a point to it. Like, Dublin then were considered the greatest team of all time, and Mayo were considered as the nearly kind of semi-called losers. Whereas, like, I have to say to Limerick, they're one of the greatest teams I've ever seen. And the more and more as the years go on, I'm saying, would they beat Kilkenny in their prime time? I'm not going to say it just yet, no. I'm not going to say it just yet, because Kilkenny deserve much more respect than that, I think. But,
yeah,
you know, if they go and win their Ireland this year, lads, and they finish up with 5 Munsters and 5 All-Irelands and 3 leagues and undefeated in 13 finals, that's a hard record to answer to argue, isn't it?
Yeah, even with the unbeaten record going at, was it 17 when Clare beat them earlier this year. Pat Wall, at Will, all the best of the power rankings after today. Yeah, there's some food for thought there. I would say. Although I think the power rankings are holding up reasonably well. Some people were complaining, why are Kilkenny in third place and how could Kilkenny be considered ahead of Galway at this stage? Well, now Kilkenny are there as Leinster champions. Galway have shown they're right alongside them. We saw that Clare are just as good as Limerick in the 2 games that they've played so far this year. So I think Limerick still have to be respected as number 1. Clare is number 2. Yeah, people shouting at me about that. The Clare should have went ahead of them. So yeah, it's a little bit below that. That's probably the problem.
You've Limerick first, you've Clare second, you've Kilkenny third, Galway fourth.
I think so now.
Presumably
fifth.
fifth.
Yeah. It's harsh on Cork. Cork didn't do a whole lot wrong during the Munster Championship, but they're out of the Championship now, so they have to kind of drop down a little bit probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have to work out that middle section just below that. And Dublin, I think, have to go ahead of Waterford. They're still in the Championship at this stage. So
it's hard to believe we've only 8 games left, isn't it?
This is a killer. I remember I sent you the brackets a couple of weeks ago, when we knew how it was working out for the quarterfinals and the preliminary quarterfinals, and it just hits home. You're like, so we've got 2 provincial finals coming up, it's going to be great. And then straight away, we only have a few more weekends left to Championship with us.
We've 6 weeks left, that's 8 games.
Yeah. By the way, I know a lot of people are going to want to watch the Sunday game because the Sunday game is going to be very hurling heavy naturally with the way today has gone at around about 9:30. So, as a result, can we jump in? And I will, while you're doing it, I'll look through the rest of the comments and we'll get a few more tasty questions before we finish. But I don't want to forget the one from last week, which is you were to pick a Leinster and Munster team. Now, Murph confirmed he already has this. When Skehill was in absentia on the road on the way back, I know his notepad already has it written in there. So
we are safe, yeah. Yeah.
He looks slightly nervous, but go on.
Who wants to go
forget
first?
to do it, Skehill? You didn't do the homework, no?
Did you do it? Oh, no way.
Is there detention, is there? I can take detention.
Paul Murphy, you're up first. How's about this, right? Given Paul Murphy has done the homework and the listeners wanted this question from last week.
I had it done last week, actually.
Yeah, so you give us a Leinster and Munster team, and Skehill, you can disagree with whoever you like on it. Get ready, Johnny Glynn.
I'm looking back at this team and just trying to remember why I picked all these players.
Go.
Okay, we go for it. So
where are you starting?
Where am I starting?
Munster or Leinster?
We'll start Leinster, sure, really.
Go for it.
Jewel in the crown. Owen Murphy. Mikey Butler.
Hugh Lawler.
Great, let's just keep it moving, okay? Hugh Lawler, Owen O'Donnell. Richie Reid, Dahi Burke, Park Mannion. Adrian Mullen, Cahill Mannion. Donald Burke, Lee Chin, Paddy Deegan. Conor Whelan, TJ, Owen Cody. So I'll let you just digest that now for a second. And if you want, will I go for Munster now, just straight into it?
Yeah, go on, because this is great crack. We can actually have the people in the comments disagree hugely with what you're putting in here as well.
Absolutely, so. Why not? So Quaid on the goal. I'm going without injuries here. I'm going Sean Finn, Morrissey, and Nash.
Whoa! Are you going the team of the Munster Championship or the best team in Munster?
Munster 15, basically the best team out of Munster 15. All things being equal, players aren't injured.
Oh, okay, that's different. Okay,
you've added another parameter there, but go on.
Like, I mean, it was the parameters were pick a Munster 15. It didn't say pick the best team in the championship. I'm
going to go through your Leinster team now, right? And I'm going to pick off a couple of lads here on form.
Okay, am I still going to Munster now? I'm going to carry on.
Well, I picked them both off. Go on, off you go.
Okay, we'll go.
give the team first, and then you can go from there.
Okay, so we'll go Quaid, Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey, Nash, Burns, Kieran Joyce, Hayes, William O'Donoghue, Noel McGrath, Declan Dalton, Cian Lynch, Tony Kelly, Gillane, Ford, and Horgan.
Jeez, I'm way too fast. Dalton, Lynch, and who?
Dalton, Lynch, and Tony Kelly.
And full forward line?
Gillane, Ford, and Horgan.
Right.
Now, go on. Pick holes.
Jeez, this is a hard one. I have to go back to Leinster, right?
Go on.
So, in terms of form,
yeah,
I would actually put in more than the goals for Dublin. On specifically on the form he showed this year.
Okay.
Because like Murphy, if I'm not mistaken, has he conceded 10 goals in 3 games?
10 goals, 3 games. Well, definitely Wexford 4.
5 in that game, wasn't it? No, 4 in that game.
No, they scored 5. Yeah, so 4. Yeah.
Excuse me, 9 in 3 games.
9. Yeah.
4, 3, and 2.
Yeah.
4, 3. Yep.
Yeah, and even the puck-out strategy. Do you notice Murphy, like Kilkenny's puck-out just seems to be pump it?
A lot of it. Yeah, okay, a lot of it. Yeah, quite a bit. I think they kind of felt, though, today particularly that they maybe had Galway at times. If they could isolate them in the skies, they could go and win it. But yeah, quite a bit short. They don't hit a lot short of their half back line. Like quite a bit is full back line or go half forward line. That's quite a bit of it. Yeah. Go on anyway.
That's been Kilkenny for history, isn't it?
We would have been longer to come with the puck outs. Yeah, certainly. We generally go with a longer puck out. Yeah.
Fuck, I said more than that. It seemed like Sean Brennan, didn't it? Take that back, sorry. Butler, can't argue with him. Yeah, fabulous. Lawler, can't argue with him. Owen O'Donnell in the corner. Yeah, he's been very good too. Richie Reid.
Not to break your flow of thought here, but I like what's gone, what's back. John Conlon, lads.
What about him?
Well, presume he wants him in the team.
Yeah, fair enough, he wants him in it, but like Kieran Joyce has been excellent for Cork. He's been enormous. I think that was more of a cry of loyalty. John Conlon's excellent, of course he is. He's very good. But like, I mean, it's very tough there. Like, I'm even looking down at the Munster team here now at the moment, going like Shane O'Donnell instead of Patrick Horgan, maybe. Do you know? And that's the team I picked. I'm disagreeing with myself nearly. You know. Go on anyway.
Yeah.
Skehill.
I
pick your role, Skehill.
You Richard Reid on there. I have to come back to that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that one. Dahi, yes. Pádraig, yes. Adrian, yes. Cahill, yes. Donald Burke, yes. Chin throughout his championship. I think when he actually was available and played for Wexford, he was very, very influential. So I have no argument with him. Paddy Deegan, I'm not sure. Wing forward. Where was he even playing today?
He was playing wing back today.
Wing back, so I just don't know. I'm not sure.
Today he was playing wing forward. I know it's fair enough because the way I was going with this, I was looking at it as a team as a whole, and like, so if you look at the half back line, for example, you have Dahi Burke, a holding centre back there, and he's like the pivot, and you have Pádraig Mannion and Richie Reid sweeping across, two lads who use the ball really well and are also good defenders, but they're great fellas at getting on ball and moving it really well. You have the likes of Adrian Mullen and Cathal Mannion. Look, you don't understand about them. You've Donald Burke, proven finisher, Lee Chin, Camlad on the ball. Paddy Deegan's possessions are through the roof often when he's half forward for Kilkenny. Like in the league final, he had the most possessions for Kilkenny. I think he had about 22 possessions, even though Kilkenny didn't play well. So I was looking at that from the point of view of a kind of a Tom Morrissey type player where like he still gets on balls even when the team isn't going well. But yeah, well, absolutely. Go on, fire away. Would you change him?
Yeah, I just maybe it's a Galway thing where I just don't think he's a prototypical wing forward. Possessions.
He's probably not. He's probably not, though. To be fair, yeah.
Maybe I could just imagine. I can just envisage Joe Cooney getting 3 or 4 points. You know what I mean? Joseph Cooney. But again, today he probably a quiet day and had some missed opportunities. But if you were to give me the choice here, I'll give you Paddy Deegan, I'll give you Joseph Cooney. I would take Joseph. But you take Paddy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wheelo can't argue, TJ can't argue, Cody can't argue. So the only ones I would probably contest would be I'm just on form this year. Just in the Leinster Championships alone, I would probably change your keeper. And I'd probably change Paddy Deegan as well. I'm not sure. That's a hard one. That's
go on Munster then. On to
Munster. Nicky has had a good championship. Probably sticks him in front. Now you know Nicky's my guy.
He is very much. He's your homeboy. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of form, let's say he's not at the same. Now when I say level, he's probably 2-3% a touch back than he was last year because we see even the Horgan goal and maybe the goal that he conceded against
the near post one. Yeah.
Was against Clare.
Yeah.
When he's conceding this at the second half, he'd be probably disappointed with him. Sean Finn, I have to take him out solely because of the injury. And then he asked
I'm guessing you'd have Sean Finn if this was fit.
Oh, that was shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
He's the first name on the list. But in terms of form, that's a hard one too. That's like who's been really good. Like I thought O'Leary was really good for Cork, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I'm probably leaning towards him. Dan Morrissey, I can't argue with him. I think he's been really good. You have Nash. Like Nash has been quite by his standards, but in terms of his defensive, he's really good.
I'm sticking up Maeve's comment here as well. One from Clare, Christ above.
But see, that's the thing. You can't if you're picking a team. It doesn't matter how many from any county. Like as in, I don't know how many I have from Kilkenny. You're just picking by positions. So like you might have 2. I think it's a push to have 3 potentially from Clare on that team. So like you can't just go and say, oh, there's only one. There's none from Waterford. So like, I mean, where's the Waterford person shouting from? There's none from Kerry. Where's the people crying, banging the drum there? Like, this is the thing. That nearly kind of goes back to as well what Skehill was saying about when you add up Clare's points over the course of the last 4 or 5 championships, they're on top or whatever. Yeah, but who's went home with the cup?
I'll tell you what, so
you can look at it 2 different ways. Go on.
let's just change it a small bit. Right? Let's go back to the start, right? And let's just go through the Clare team versus this team you've picked here, Murph.
Yeah.
And say, right, who would I pick here? Now, so, would you pick Quilligan or Nicky? I'm picking Nicky.
Yeah.
Would you pick Rory Hayes or pick Niall O'Leary at the minute? I'm picking O'Leary.
Yeah.
Would you pick Conor Cleary, Dan Morrissey? Dan Morrissey. Would you pick Adam Hogan or Brian Nash? You're picking Brian Nash. Fair enough?
Yep.
Now, Jim Ryan, there's probably... Does he get in that team?
He's had a good championship, but Burns quiet enough today. Hurler
of the year, shoots the lights out. You're not taking off Jim Burns. You're not taking off Jim Burns.
You're not.
Now, Kieran Joyce and John Conlon, that's a question mark. I would probably question that one, Murph.
You could.
Yeah. For me, I put in John.
It's arguable, that one.
Yeah, I put in John that one. That's just me, right?
Okay.
And then you have Kyle Hayes versus McInerney, is it?
McGraw McInerney. Yeah. Or Dave. Sorry, Dave.
I'm putting Kyle Hayes. Sorry.
Yeah.
So now then, excuse me, at midfield you've got is it Donovan?
O'Donoghue and Noel McGrath.
McGrath versus Davy Fitz and Ryan Taylor. Ooh. Davy Fitz
could be a big argument there, but you're having Noel McGrath for the pulling the strings, and then it's William O'Donoghue, and for me, neither William O'Donoghue, Noel McGrath, and fucking Davy Fitz. Noel McGrath only does one job that out of those three that the other two don't do. So he pulls the strings, whereas William O'Donoghue and Davy Fitz are quite similar. And when William O'Donoghue's going well, he's a fair force of nature. So
yeah,
Davy Fitz,
I'll have to coach him into. You've Dalton now in here. Shane O'Donnell. There has to be a spot for him somewhere.
That's the other one that was saying potentially Shane O'Donnell could be in there.
Where do I put him? I in fairness, I would take out Dalton and put in SOD Shane O'Donnell.
I'd actually take out Horgan, put him in. Declan Dalton, I'm leaving him there for the devilment.
The devilment.
I thought he's had a really good Munster championship. I mean, not by we're going by form, but if I was to take out something, I'm saying there Ford can pop over the frees. Horgan's obviously very consistent, but let's say Ford can pop them over. Even Gillane can pop them over. But Shane O'Donnell will cause carnage there. If you're taking out someone, I'd be taking Horgan.
Yeah.
Let's put Darren's question to you here, and Darren also asked we do a graphic for this, and when the boys eventually agree, I will do one. Obviously, this is being debated out live currently between the two lads, but if you're putting injuries aside, how can you leave out the 5-time Munster Championship and 4-time All-Ireland winning captain? Justice for Decky Hannon.
Sure, don't we have the was it 5-time Munster Championship and 4-time All-Ireland winner Sean Finn, the 5-time blah blah blah, and 4-time Dan Morrissey, the 5-time fourth grade. Do you want to just put the Limerick team in there, That's
a fabulous answer.
We've been there arguing it back after we went, here's everyone else in the rest of the country, and there'll actually be 8 Limerick lads on the team, so yeah.
Or 15 nearly at this stage, yeah.
Very, very, very fair point. Let's see. There were a few other questions which I want to throw at you. There was definitely an interesting one here about... it's from the all around the GAAs again. Question for Skehill. Is Cathal Mannion being deployed too deep? Would he be more effective in an advanced position?
Yes.
I know you're the head of the Cathal Mannion fan club, so where should he be deployed?
Yeah, I'm chairman, secretary, treasurer. Absolutely. I think Cathal Mannion always and forever for me should be 11. It's very hard for me to not envisage him in a role, let's say a TK role or Keane Lynch role, whereby they're given nearly a license to roam where they want to go. It seems like he's always limited to the half back line, picking up and feeding ball in. It's a bit one-dimensional for us at the moment, but I'd love to see him at 11 around that area, just picking and running, because his striking is so exemplary that if he gets a shot anywhere within 70 yards, even from a static position, it's a point. So the likes of him should be in around that area, and not back in or half back line, picking up loose ball and hitting down to a packed defence. So yes.
Can I just throw a question? Go on. Do we actually only have 7 games left? Is it 8 or is it 7? Is it actually 7?
Two preliminary quarterfinals, 2 quarterfinals, 2 semi-finals, and the final.
That's 7.
7, yeah.
I thought we did.
We said 8, yeah. Do you know who texted you there, Skehill? My wife. Huh? She just texts me there and says it's only 7. Correct, Skehill, on that one. Jesus, your stats are slipping.
There you go.
Shite, she's right.
The notepad has been compromised at this stage.
And I couldn't believe, Murph, when I heard that your good wife was from Tipperary.
Yeah, yeah. Nina.
Oh my God.
G10, I can't answer this, and I don't think the lads can either, because they were at the game and I didn't have the TV turned up. I was in studio on the radio earlier today. I just saw the clip of this being talked about and the fact that it was apparently something that was said off air and then was brought up on air, which to me is really weird. I think if you're going to bring that up with a pundit, if I was standing with the two lads and we were watching the game, I would say to both of you beforehand, I'm going to bring up something that we were talking about. There's no way I would go, geez, did you hear what Murph said there, Skehill, earlier on? I'm going to bring it up later on and say it was off the record. But apparently Jackie Tyrrell had mentioned Conor Whelan being a one-trick pony. So I've only seen the clip. I've not seen the actual context of the conversation. So maybe, look, if someone else wants to get involved in the chat, what that was about, I don't know, Skehill, if you can call him a one-trick pony or what the suggestion will be. That is he just all power and going for points and goals? Like, that's a bad thing.
Jeez, no, I don't think he's a one-trick. Because again, more than the debate we had with about TJ and Joe last week, like I have a whole different list of attributes or characteristics you're looking for in a player. Like Conor Whelan ticks the head with them. I know you might say like Tony Kelly. See, the trouble is I don't think we're really truly comparing apples with apples here. If you're comparing Tony Kelly, like he's the guy that bounces around everywhere. You know, the same as kind of a Keane Inch type person where they find everywhere. But in terms of full forward line positioning and power to finish, like Conor Whelan's up there right at the top. Like if you're, I think it's very hard to find a world where you can truly separate Owen Cody and Conor Whelan. So if you could say, right, Owen Cody is 20% better than Conor Whelan, I don't agree with that. I think the two of them are neck and neck for what they produce for the respective teams. So for him to say a one-trick pony, I think he's wrong on that one.
Yeah. Patrick here. Murphy, how do you rate Kilkenny for the All-Ireland now? Good chance of winning it or not?
Well, they're in a great position from the point of view that they don't have that extra match. Like, regardless, whatever team came out of it today, going into the qualifiers, playing Tipperary and playing Limerick now, that's a tough one. And Skehill said at the start, if you're to go that route and win All-Ireland, it'd be one of the greatest All-Irelands to win because that's a tough route to go through. And it's a tough route considering you lost your last match as well. And like, you know, one team we haven't spoken about in the last 2 weeks really is Tipperary. Like, they have been going really well. All bar their match against Wexford, they've been going really, really well. And they're a team that I think will heavily feature now, you know. And playing them, even if you get over them and you do win your match, it's going to take a lot out of you as a team. So let's say if Kilkenny now going into a semi-final, having the confidence of today, bringing a few more lads back on board, back from injury, and facing a potentially leggy team in the semi-final, it's a great place to be in to get to an All-Ireland final. And when it gets to an All-Ireland final, it's one game. You know, it goes back to that old cliche. It is one game at that stage. So, like, I'm really happy where Kilkenny are at. It was great buzz there today. I'm just seeing this panel getting deeper. And like I was saying, once the few lads come back from injury, like it's, you know, you'd have to be happy that if someone told you this is the stage Kilkenny would be at come this stage of the year, you'd be delighted. And I'm sure Skehill would have said the same about Galway. You know, if Galway came over today and had won the match, you'd be going, brilliant. We're actually now, forget everything that went before. We're in a great position here to have a tilted in All-Ireland final. So yeah, like I'm happy with Kilkenny at the moment, absolutely.
Yeah, a few people saying as well, again, I didn't see the interview because I was working at the time, but apparently Tyrrell held his hands up at the end when he awarded Conor Whelan man the match for the way that he performed today as well. So there you go. I didn't see it. I must go back and have a look. I only saw the initial clip, which was it being brought up that it was a off-air comment, and my first reaction was, Jesus, that seems like he's been put out to dry a little bit here if he made a comment off-air and it wasn't brought up as a potential discussion one. G10 came back to clarify the comments, doesn't think the Whelan is up. This was, by the way, the comment on the TV. The Whelan is up with the very top forwards, Gillane, Horgan, Kelly and Reid. I don't know, I think he's one of the best in the country. Jason here also saying he disagrees. Have to disagree with Clare Free at the end. TK was nowhere near the ball. Flanagan just fell to the ground. Clare all day were looking for handy frees, and that seems to be the kind of back and forth that's going on there. Tom O'Hall's wondering, will the quarterfinals be double headers? I think not necessarily, but we did have double headers a few years ago at Semple Stadium. It wasn't one of the quarterfinals at like stupid o'clock last year. Clare and Wexford, from memory, was on really early. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
1 o'clock on Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen again.
Was that Cork and Galway now?
Cork and Galway was part of a double header, wasn't it? Wasn't Cork and Galway the second game?
Yeah, it could be open.
Or were they on different days? I have a sneaky feeling though, weren't they both in Thurles on the one day? And was there like was that the year maybe the Euros was on rather than last year? Or was it maybe it was 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago when the Euros were on, so the throw-in times were at really weird times? No, sure, it had to be last year. Sure, it was the late comeback.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, it was on really stupidly early anyway. That's my abiding memory of that one. But I would think with the teams involved, Semple Stadium doubleheader has to be, it was a Saturday, yeah. And Cork Galway was before the Wexford Clare game. So hold on, so Cork and Galway was the early game and then Wexford and Clare was afterwards. I just remember the really early throw-in because I was in work when it was going on. I just kind of thought surely put it on at a better time. Yeah, again, similarly, I think put the two finals on different days if you possibly can. I think it just makes far, far more sense. And just before we go, because like River Power is saying, Sunday game is on. I have to love you and leave you, lads. You can always watch this back, by the way, if you're on YouTube particularly. It'll all go up once it's processed afterwards, and you can scrub back with the timestamps and everything and have a look back at the show, or of course you can listen back on the podcast version. But I'm going to throw one that came in very early from Dante, which is an almost philosophical question, which you can have first, Murph. Could the lads talk a bit about the state of hurling? There's been a lot of talk over the past year that goals aren't being scored and all that. Are pundits being too reactionary? Now, there is always the risk, Murph, that we're too reactionary, where we've had two very entertaining games and loads of goals and chances today, and we go, that was a magnificent Sunday of hurling that really lived up to the hype on provincial final day. But I don't know about you, I think hurling's in a pretty decent state at the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely of that mindset. I think because we have so much to talk about with hurling, there seems to be always a conversation on, and I'd be always kind of quick to zoom out from the conversation and is the conversation more tweaking really small things? Like, I think everybody's determined to tweak it so much that we get to this perfect game and we're happy now, but it's never perfect. You're never going to have the game absolutely 100% perfect. But like a few weeks ago, we were talking that people had complaints that there were so many scores that they want to make the ball heavier and all these sort of things. And you're there going, surely that's a great thing that we have so many scores in a game. We have so much going on. Absolutely, there is things we need to improve on. But the general state of hurling at the moment, I think, is in a really good place. I think it's brilliant. When you see some of the conversations around, not to be not throwing shade at football or anything at the moment, but certainly there is conversation there in terms of people are talking about Roscommon and things at the moment, let's say against Dublin. And was that match a spectacle? And really just more broad strokes, right? Trying to get the game back to being a spectacle. When you look at hurling at the moment, we still have that spectacle, we still have it. And maybe it's the whole thing of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Absolutely implement things that would be important for safety and for different things in the game. But I think the game at the moment is in a really great place. And I do think at times we are quick to jump to, we're in the middle of the league and it's like round 3 of the league and we have a round of dull matches and suddenly we're thinking it's, end of the world stuff, when it's not. It just happens sometimes, and that's nature. When you look at today and you look at some of the games even in Munster as well, like it's I think it's in a really good place at the moment. And generally I'd be really happy with it.
Here we go, Darren. Give us info on the live show. So I was told on Thursday, definitely by this weekend, you can give them the information on the live show. And I was ready to go on this. And then I was told that the graphics and the website, the tickets and so on are going to take a few days more. So I should be able to announce it at some point early next week. But the long and the short of it is, like, without giving too much away here, you already know that Joe Canning's going to be there. It's the week of the All-Ireland final. I'm not even sure exactly what day it's going to be. And our sponsors are Bord Gáis Energy. We're going to the Bord Gáis Theatre in Dublin for the roadshow. It's probably going to be one of the biggest GAA roadshows that OTB have ever done. And hopefully pretty much everyone, there's now about 400 odd people here, there's about 700 people earlier, will all, pick up a ticket and come to the Bord Gáis. That has to be the hope. Tell a friend, bring 4 with you for the night as well. Because I think it's going to be really good, but I can't give you the exact details until I get all that information during the week. But that is the crack with the live show. I've had people DM me as well going, you guys have been hinting at this and teasing at it. How come you're not telling us? And that's as much as I can tell you right now. It's going to be in the Bord Gáis, week of the All-Ireland final. Joe Canning is there. Skehill is there. Murphy is there. God willing, I'll be there as well. And we'll have a few more guests. And it's going to be a really good fun night. The guests in the end may well be determined by who gets the All-Ireland final. I think we've already been promised one current player if they don't get to the final, but I have a sneaky feeling that team will actually get there. So any final questions before we finish up this? William Doyle saying today's hurling would be a good way to show the world, to promote what a great game it is. Mm-hmm. And I saw two other ones I want to throw at you before we finish. Jack Duggan here. Do you think the hurling championship starts too early, though? The middle of July feels too early for the championship to be finished. What do you think, Skehill?
I don't think there's enough games, to be honest. I suppose when you question hurling's state at the moment, I think the actual game itself, the physical game, is in a super state. I think we'd always have topics of conversation around calls, referee calls, instances like that, which is grand. That's just an individual point of the game, but the game itself is healthy. But I think there's definitely food for thought in terms of making the game healthier. And for that, for me, I think it's a few more games. I think the league itself, truthfully speaking, I think the league is nearly, I won't say petered out, but it doesn't carry anywhere near the importance that it did in the past. So I'd love to see a restructuring somehow whereby the championship is extended. Because it makes for grim reading that, you're right, Murph, or Mrs. Murphy, should I say, Aideen, that's the 7 games where, 7 games left, only 6 weeks, and like that 6 weeks will fly, because this is probably our 20th show, Will, right now?
Give or take, yeah, I think so.
So that 20
I stopped
weeks,
putting numbers on them a while ago. But
that 20 weeks, it's just absolutely flown. So I'd love to see more games, not necessarily expanded out and have more more of a gap between games, just more physical games. Because today was a great spectacle. You'd love to have it again next week. You'd love to have it again in 2 weeks' time, etc. Which would be good for the game. But I can't see a restructuring happening anytime soon, because I'd say it's hard to think back of a Munster Championship that has been as exciting. Or maybe last year you could say. But before that, like the Munster Championship, I think is at the absolute peak of its powers. So I think if there was a question to restructure the championship as a whole, there'd be mass riots. There'd be like the Dutch farmers. There'd be tractors all over the streets. Munster or Dublin would shut down if they go to change the Munster Championship. So I can't see a restructuring happening anytime soon. So I say, lads, we have what we have. Stick with it and just glorify it. Move on.
What do you reckon, Murph?
I'd agree with Skehill. Yeah, like I mean, it's like it just does feel like it's finishing very quickly, and I think maybe we're all still. It's like we're jet lagged, that we still are all built to feel that the All Ireland should be on in September. And because I was only thinking of it yesterday, like we wouldn't be at the Leinster semi-final stage previous years. Like go back 10 years ago, I'd probably say it's right. We wouldn't be at the Leinster final stage at this time. Yeah, we wouldn't be. Yeah, so it's I think we're still adjusting with that now at the moment. I would like to see more games. That's the big thing. Like, as in what we've seen is really good. Like just Taylor said, the Munster Championships have been absolutely excellent. That we seem to be producing something really good there. But just having more games, and maybe it goes back to what we were saying, the likes of if we somehow saw it fit to make a larger group or two groups where you mix Kilkenny and Galway and Dublin, Wexford all in across Munster as well. And there's some way then that you can lengthen out the process, and then we get more games. But if it is the GAA's will to have the split season, and you still want to have it finished by the end of July or start of August, well, at least we've had more games within that time as well. But it's a tough one. It is a tough one to figure out what is the exact answer for that at the moment. But it just feels like I can't believe that we're 7 games left, and it feels like we're really only hitting the stride now. So it's a tough place.
Yeah, one last question before we go, coming from John S. Lads, what are great last puck goals? I'm thinking today, Jacob against Kilkenny in 2004. Can't remember too many other last puck goals. Plenty of late ones, but those ones that are full-time whistle on the puck out. Ballygunner, I'd say, if there's any Ballygunner supporters around, to be pointing out winning Ireland with the last ball just nestling into the net from Harry Ruddle. That has to be up there, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. That was a brilliant one, in fairness now. Adrian Mullins won against Cork in 21 to draw it, yeah. Like that was last game, yeah.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 99.
Great one. Great one. Very apt with the week that's in it.
There's an asterisk in that one too, lads. That's not the real trouble. It's not Man City. That's not the real trouble.
Oh, right. I thought you were saying Man United 99.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I was like, that's a random fucking dig out of nowhere.
Yeah, the Man City one is an asterisk.
Asterisk, not real.
No.
Not real. Anyway, that's some way.
Didn't think the Hurling Pod would be getting into the 115 charges, which are currently sitting over Man City, but here we are. I think that pretty much brings us up to a wrap for tonight. For anyone who is still watching on our YouTube or on Facebook at the moment, it would help out massively if you could give the video a like, which will help to get it promoted up along the way. I think we'll go back to the old format next week as opposed to a live. These lives are kind of really special, and it's nice to keep them as a special occasion after we've had something like the really good games today. But I'm sure we can go live again after the quarterfinals in a couple of weeks' time, and then I'd say we'll go live after the semis and after the final as well. So all that to look forward to over the next few weeks. Before we finish up as well, I want to tell you about the winner of our competition this week, because of course hurling is anyone's game. Off the Ball teaming up with the Senior Hurling Championship sponsors Bord Gáis Energy to uncover stories highlighting the positive impact hurling has had on people's lives. This week the competition winner, which is hosted by our good friends at Bord Gáis Energy, is Rosie Fahy and her family. Rosie is playing camogie with Whitegate in County Clare while her dad trains the under-20 Clare hurlers. Rosie says she enjoys going along to all the games and cheering on the Banner County. So congrats again, Rosie, who wins a goodie bag from Bord Gáis Energy, and you can get involved every week on that. There's also loads of hurling content which is going to be there across the week on Off the Ball. Our good mate, at this stage I can call him, Anthony Nash, who has promised to come onto the podcast at some point, is putting out really good pods every Friday on OTB throughout the hurling season. I would implore you to go back, even though the final is over, and have a listen back to the podcast last week with Joe Quaid and with Jamesy O'Connor. Did you know, Murph, about Kieran Carey, that he had no skin left on his feet after that point in 96?
No, I didn't know that now.
He wore rugby boots for the game, even though the ground was rock hard.
Why did he wear rugby boots?
So apparently he doesn't like mouldies, so he felt that he had to have long studs for grip, and he wanted to have good grip going into the game. But it was one of those days, if you ever watch back to YouTube, like the sun is baking the pitch. It's, you look at the pitch and it's kind of, it's more yellow than green, Skehill, when you look down at it. And Kieran Carey was like bopping along for that winning point, and he runs the ball up from effectively midfield, centre-half back position, goes up, takes the shot, and then runs gingerly back into position. Pretty much that whole time, his feet were blistering and the skin was coming off. Quaid was saying, as old school as it is back in 96, they both had a cigarette in the dressing room. They were the last two men in, as everyone else had pretty much left at that point. And it was only at that stage when he saw the blood coming through the socks when Carey was peeling them off his feet. Sorry for the squeamish. He had to carry him into the shower. And the idea was he was trying to get any part of his feet onto the ground that wasn't already bloody or blistered at that stage.
Oh, Jesus. That's different level stuff altogether.
Yeah. It is. The other good story, not to give the entire interview away, it's well worth having a listen. It's like an hour of Quaid and Jamesy telling war stories from their rivalry in the mid-90s. The other one that was quite interesting was Clare, when Limerick were going for the All-Ireland final, I think in that year in 96 as well. So obviously it was knockout championship. Clare played them in a challenge game, even at the point that Clare had gone back to their clubs at that stage as Limerick were getting ready for the All-Ireland final. Apparently they got into a car and were told they were going to play a challenge game, thought maybe this was going to be some underage team or some club team. And next thing it was their old rivals Clare, who they played in a couple of provincial finals, who were there to help them tune up for the All-Ireland final. So few really good war stories there. You can look at Jamesy O'Connor and Tommy Welsh on our YouTube or in the podcast section of OTB if you want to listen back to the games from today as well. So all them really good. They are definitely worth a look back. Carrying the point against Clare, adrenaline is a hell of a drug. It really seems to be. I don't think he realised until he got off the pitch exactly how bad his feet were. It's one of those where I suppose you get off the pitch, don't even think about it, and next thing you're sitting beside Quaid having a cigarette going, yeah, this doesn't look good. So all that is well worth having a look on OTB. Our hurling pods, not just the hurling pod itself, but all the hurling content has been flying, which I think has probably been a reflection of what we've been seeing on the pitch so far as well. Lads, it's been a pleasure as always to share the evening with you. We'll let you go off and watch the game. Skehill, I'm particularly thankful of you making it back in such quick time, entirely legally, to join us on a tough day.
I was like Star Trek. Just beam me up. I was here.
Murph, it's been an absolute pleasure having you along as well. Enjoy the latest O'Keefe success. 75 up now for Kilkenny, which is fair going.
Yeah, great one. Go and enjoy it.
Good stuff, lads. We'll talk to you soon.
OTB's The Hurling Pod.
With Board Gosh Energy.
Hurling. It's anyone's game.